Is this thing on? Is this thing working? Is there anybody out there? Please let me know if you can hear me. Hi, how you doing out there in internet land? My name is Brian Trippett. I am known as the Front Porch Conservative. Welcome to the weekend session of Front Porch Brunch, a lively little get-together where you and I talk about items going on in the news. And oh my God, what a past 48 hours it has been. We are on Rumble, we are on Twitter, we are on YouTube, that quaint little alternative social media platform. So if you haven't done it yet, please send out a link. Send out on Gettr, on Gab, on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever you are, Instagram. Rockfin, Rumble. I don't know where you're at out there. But send out the link. Tell people to come on in. If you've never been with us before, we get together on the weekends. We talk about what's going on in the news in a nice, casual, very relaxed manner. Again, my name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. I am sometimes known as the beau in the chapeau. I am sometimes called the fine fella in the fedora. I am referred to on occasion as the common man with common sense, but above all titles and all other ways of describing me, there is one thing you can absolutely say. I am your host. Again, we are on Rumble, we are on Twitter, and we are on YouTube. So, pour yourself something, pull up a chair, grab some newspapers, whatever you're doing out there, and let's just hang out and talk. Because, you've worked hard. You've been trying to make it through the week. You've been trying to put up with your mother, your lover, your brother, your sister, your mister. You're putting up with the boss. You're putting up with all the crap at work. You haven't had time to catch up with what's going on in the news. But here we are now. So yeah, do me a favor. Come on in. Let's hang out. Let's talk. Let's get together. Let's fellowship. Let us bond together over all that. And see if we can't make sense out of all the things going on in this absolutely crazy world. My goodness. So yes, it is Saturday morning. That means brunch. Oh my goodness. What a 48 hours that it has been. The last time that we got together was for the presidential debate. And first of all, I want to thank everybody across all platforms, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. And for folks who were on Rumble, I need to give some apologies because I got emails, from actually one of my guests. It was Robin McCutcheon, and someone had reached out to her and had said, "Hey, we're having trouble posting, getting posts in chat on Rumble." And I wrote back. I said, believe me, it was not me. I have absolutely no restrictions. And I'm serious about this. And I'm not just saying it. It's true. I have no restrictions whatsoever on what you post on Rumble. Basic common sense and everything. So, for anybody that was having trouble posting on Rumble that night, believe me, it was a Rumble thing. I am going to reach out to him and tell him what happened, because I know WWG1 was having a miserable time doing it. Other people were too. So, but laying that aside, the entire experience of doing that, covering that presidential debate was awesome. I want to give a big shout out to my buddy Ruben Christopher Haynes. Ruben is a load of fun. I have hung out with him. I've hung out with him physically. We hung out together in Florida one time. Ruben's just a hell of a nice guy and extremely smart. And when it comes to doing this kind of stuff, he loves doing it. I love doing it. And it's a joy to hang out with him. So Ruben, if you're out there this morning, God bless you, brother. Thank you so much. And, we've got the Republican National Convention coming up mid-July. So I'm going to reach out to him and various other people who have hosted stuff with me before, because this is going to be, I keep saying that we're living in interesting times. It's like, daggone it, every time I turn around, it just gets even more interesting. So, yeah, we had the debate Thursday night. We had some big Supreme Court decisions that came down on Friday. These are the ones everybody's been waiting for, and there's still one more hanging out there, which is the presidential immunity case, which is probably going to be announced on Monday. So, oh my goodness, good morning. Well, first of all, I want to say good morning to Gypsy. Love you, darling. And This scoundrel, who has probably one of the finest physiques I've ever seen, and I say this as a straight man, okay? Daniel, I absolutely love you and I hate you at the same time. You're built like a damn Greek statue. It's ridiculous. But dude, you look awesome. And I'm not kidding about this. You look fantastic. Keep it up. And by the way, your little workout brother, that as you refer to him, dang, dude's got a set of guns on him. It's ridiculous. Yeah. TBA's over on Rumble. Chevron is gone. We're going to get to that. That's one of the things we're getting to this morning. But yeah, Daniel, we're glad to have you here. WWG1 is here. It was a Rumble problem. We know that. It wasn't your show. It was all over the place. Yeah, apparently everybody was out of that. But yeah, it's, we got a great audience this morning that's already setting in. We're going to talk about things that have happened in the past 48 hours and all their implications. And yeah, I've seen your little workout brother, as you lovingly refer to him. And yes, he did a Romanian deadlift the other night, and it just, oh my God, that was stupid what he was lifting up. That's crazy. Anyway, sorry folks. I mean, I go to the gym, and do I work out the way I should? Do I eat the way I should? Hell no. Okay, I know that. Although, come about mid-July, I'm gonna invoke you all in a project of accountability that I need help with, and I will tell you about it when we get there. But yeah, this is going to be off my list for a while. So come mid-July. So, Gypsy, I'll just live vicariously through you. You enjoy all the biscuits you want from me. There you go. But yeah, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about this morning. And by the way, we have something a little unusual this morning for brunch. And where did everybody go? Okay. We have a guest who will be joining us this morning. And I am really looking forward to talking to this gentleman. If you've never had the occasion to hear this guy stand up, or more importantly, watch some of the documentaries that he has created, Eric Abbenante will be here. He is a documentarian. He's a stand-up comedian. He is a intellectual provocateur, as I love to refer to it. Very smart guy. He and I have sort of been touching base for a few weeks now. And he messaged me earlier this week, said, "Hey man, you got anything cooking Saturday morning?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can have you on." I'm going to be on doing a live stream anyways. I was like, "What time you want to do?" He's like, "Well, I'm on Central. How about 11:30?" I was like, "Works for me." So he'll be here at 11:30, 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 his time, or a little after. He's taking, you might have heard of his wife. You might have heard of his wife. She's got this, I don't know, what was it? Was it Lila Hippie? Oh yeah, Lila Hart. He's married to Lila Hart. So yeah. Also, we're having a returning guest. We're having a returning guest come back to the electronic front porch, and I always look forward to chatting with this guy, because there are some people that you meet, and when you talk to him, you're like, "Oh, daggone, this guy is just we jive together real good." Darius Simpson is coming back. YouTube content creator, commentator in his own right. He will be here at 3:30 today. So yeah, I'm going to get very few bathroom and lunch breaks. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, we're going to have a load of fun this weekend. Okay. Let's start with the first topic of the morning. And this one's probably going to take us a while, because there are so many different angles to address this from. And there's a great debate that's raging right now. Excuse me, I have to take a sip of water. A great debate that's raging. TBA says, "You can't cover everything." I know! My God, there's so much news breaking out everywhere. It's ridiculous. I mean, I was trying to gather up some stuff for HodgePodge too, and I mean, there's things we can talk about before Eric gets here at 12:30. My God, it's everywhere. Holy crap. Which we'll get some, we're going to have some stew. Don't worry. We'll get to some HodgePodge stew. But the biggest thing we've got to talk about as far as I'm concerned, or at least for purposes of this channel, since I am the omnipotent despot, and I get to say what we're going to talk about. The Right Honorable John McGarvey is in the house. Good morning, sir. The continued fallout from Thursday night's presidential debate. I said it the other night when in the post debate conversation. I said, I've watched all kinds of debates in my life. I've seen presidential primary debates. I've seen presidential debates between the two actual candidates. I've seen debates for people running for the U.S. Senate, for Congress, mayoral elections, all kinds of stuff, school board races. And I've watched this stuff for years. But I don't think that I have ever seen anybody lay an egg as big or as bad as Joe Biden did the other night. Now, there's 1,000,001 clips that we could go through showing just how bad he just absolutely fell all over himself. And I'm using that term diplomatically and with as much kindness as I can possibly provide the guy. I mean, y'all know how I feel about Biden, okay? I think I've used the term bottom-feeding scumsucker more often to describe him than maybe I have any other American politician I've ever watched. He is truly that. He is a bottom-feeding scumsucker. What I saw last night was an old man that, frankly, was being abused. He's being abused by his wife. He's being abused by his immediate family. He's being abused by a handful of advisors who are around him, which we've got an article from Axios. We're going to get into that. The man looked lost. He looked confused. You could not understand what he was saying. He was mumbling through some things. Yeah, John, this is live. We are live, brother. Yeah, this is just, it was awful. And I'm going to play you a clip. It's not anything that, people haven't already been saying, but this is probably the moment of the debate where Donald Trump gets off one line and totally crystallizes everything that everybody's thinking and really encapsulates the point of what happened Thursday night. Folks, do me a favor. Check this out.
On the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what he said at the end of that sentence, and I really don't think he does either. Trump has a gift. And I'm not trying to, blow him up for more than what he is, but he has the incredible knack, which some people are blessed with, and that is to take a very multifaceted issue or event or happening and crystallize it down into a phrase that when you hear it, everything makes sense. Take you back to 2016. I'll give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Do you remember the second debate? It was the town hall style format between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And Hillary made the statement, thank God that someone like Donald Trump does not have control of law enforcement in this country. And as she's turning around to walk back to her stool, Trump grabs his microphone and says, yeah, because you'd be in jail. And everybody in the room lost it. I happened to say, when I saw that, I said, Donald Trump just won the election. Because Donald Trump, in that moment, crystallized what everybody was thinking about Hillary. All those nagging worries. It's like, she's got more political experience and she's been on the scene longer, and he's not a politician. He's never been elected to anything. Hands down, I ought to vote for her, but there's just some reason why. There's just some reason why I can't do it. Trump helped everybody out at that point when he said, when she made that statement, he turned and said, yeah, because you'd be in jail. Everybody realized, oh, she's dirty as hell. She's crooked like a dog's hind leg. I can't vote for her. That's what Trump does in these moments. I really don't understand what he said at the end of that sentence, and I don't think he does either. That quote is probably going to go down in the annals of presidential debate history in the top 10 of things that have been said that absolutely defined, maybe not just that debate, but defined the entire election between the two candidates. Now, we've got some other clips to get to. Now, not necessarily the debate, but I want to show you guys something, which we did not see after the cameras went dark at the end of the debate. And someone has put this to dramatic music. For the sake of not getting a copyright strike, I'll show this with no volume, okay? Although I wish I could do it. If we were on Rumble exclusively, I'd do this because this is funny. You see the two men walking off stage. And I'll go ahead and describe it to you, even though you're not going to hear any audio. You're going to see Donald Trump walk off the stage, and imagine the song Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. That's the music that they use to describe Trump walking off the stage. Then imagine Biden walking off the stage to a piece of Enya music, okay? Who can say where heart goes? That one, that's what I'm talking about. So, okay, TBA knows the exact one I'm talking about, okay? But this, you've got to watch, okay? Watch how these two men exit the stage. Okay, they're done. Jake Tapper's folding up his papers. Trump is like giving a thumbs up, just kind of stalks off. There's his two aides who are with him, which were the only ones allowed in the studio. He's just walking off the stage like a gangsta. Okay, now go back to Biden, and this is what nobody saw that night. A producer's walking over saying, watch that step. Jill Biden is literally leading him off by the hand. Folks, there's no getting around this. Well, I'm going to admit something too. I love Enya. I'm like you. I love Enya. And now I'm going to admit something that's probably going to get, really get me in trouble. I love Yanni. Haven't heard much of his music in a long time, but I do. Daniel, just for you, I'm going to drop this. Well, I'll do it for Rumble too. But if you want to watch this with the music, then I recommend. Yeah, Daniel, you're absolutely right, dude. You're absolutely right. I mean, she's leading him by the hand, folks. That's not some cheap fake, by the way. That's not some Republican thing. That is the cameras rolling at CNN. They watched her lead him by the hand off stage. TBA asked, CNN showed that? Unbelievable. I don't know if CNN showed it, but somebody caught the clip. Oh, we're getting to this too. Don't worry, we're getting to this. We're getting to this. I'm sorry if y'all are sitting there going, man, he's fired up this morning. How can you not be? What we just saw, that one clip where the exchange between Biden and Trump, Jill Biden leading her husband, the president of the United States, supposedly the most powerful man in the world, leading him around like a child. And I'm supposed to believe this is the leader of the free world? This is the leader of the West? The most powerful man on the planet? I'm supposed to believe that? BS. Bravo, Sierra. Serious Bravo, Sierra. Link that clip. Tell you what. Oh, you're talking about the eye of the... okay, hang on. Daniel, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Hang on, folks. Daniel, I am going to send you via Twitter. Hang on here, because I love you. And the fact that you like Yanni, okay, that's just, okay. I had tons of respect for you anyway, but that just, you're getting points with me, dude. I just sent you a Twitter DM. Okay. Oh, the one of them walking off? Same clip. It's the one I just sent you. I just sent it to you. Oh, no, dude, you do not want me to sing. I'm serious. Rivers will turn to blood. The moon will go dark. Dogs and cats start habitating together. Mass hysteria. It's just line from Ghostbusters. But I mean, yeah, it's just, I'm sitting here going, you've got to be kidding me. You have genuinely got to be kidding me. And as if all that weren't bad enough, and we talked about this Thursday night, I just want to review this for you guys. CNN did one of their post-debate snap polls, which never, ever, ever shows the Republican winning the debate. Watch this. By 2-1, everybody watching this debate that polled this question, that answered this poll question for CNN, 2-1, Trump wins the debate. And the commentary is absolutely hysterical. Bill Maher on his show, Real Time. This line is absolutely incredible. It's so funny. And I thought, I got to play this morning. Go, folks, do me a favor. Check this out.
And trailing off, I've seen beauty pageant contestants answer questions better. I mean, I don't want to say he shit the bed. His new Secret Service name is Amber Heard. Come on. This guy was bad.
Yeah, his new Secret Service name is Amber Heard. Why? He shit the bed so bad on this debate. Sorry, TBA, I just checked my audios. I will do it again real fast, but I have got everything pumped as high as I can get it. But let me try something here. Hang on. Let me see what I can do. I swear to you, I've got the volume up on this thing. Let me try one more thing. Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, this is how bad it is. Now, let's go back to Jill Biden for a second. There is a clip post-debate that's going around, and I just, in one sense, I understand why she said what she did. Okay. I get why she said what she did, but it's like, oh my God. It's just, I cannot believe. Well, yeah, I can too. Yeah, I can. I just cannot believe what I watched. And it's just, it goes on and on with these people. And you guys have got to see this. You do. This is Jill Biden post-debate. Y'all have probably seen this one. Yeah, I need to believe it, even though I can't. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anyway, watch Jill Biden trying to give support and comfort to her husband. Watch this.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lie!
I'm sorry. I am absolutely sorry. Joe, you answered every question. You knew everything. She's patting him on the head like he's in second grade. She's patronizing down to him. Joe, you answered all the questions. You knew all the facts. That's like saying, I took 50 shots in a basketball game. I didn't make a basket, but I took 50 shots in a basketball game. I've been up to the plate 100 times over the past month. I haven't gotten a single base hit yet, but I've been up to the plate and struck out 100 times. Oh my God! And I know I shouldn't be like this, but it's just insulting what they're trying to do here. Oh, ignore the fact that my husband's a dribbling idiot. I mean, who doesn't know where he is and looks like he's totally lost and can't coherently speak and has brain freeze. Ignore all that. He knows all the facts. He answered all the questions. Oh my God. This is awful on so many levels. Yes, I absolutely agree with you. No, yeah. And there were so many expressions like that throughout the night. However, yeah, and this is what they're trying to do. They've got to do something. Everybody who watched this debate has now seen what Joe Biden is, and we're going to get into that point here in just a minute. TBA says it's like Woodrow Wilson's term all over again. And if you don't know what TBA is referring to, toward the end of Wilson's presidency, he suffered a heart attack or stroke. I forget which of the two it was, and it was debilitating. Eva Braun, wife, consort, whatever she was to him, was more or less running the country, but nobody had any idea. Jill Biden may be the Eva Braun of the 21st century. Or somebody is. Valerie Jarrett, I don't know who. But this guy's not running the country. Oh, it was Edith Wilson. I apologize. For some reason I kept thinking Braun. Maybe that man maiden name. Oh, not Eva Braun. Okay, well, I'm old. Shoot me. But you get my point. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But he recovered. And I want to show you this clip. Oh, Eva Braun was Hitler's girlfriend. Well, Woodrow Wilson, Adolf Hitler, there's an Eva. Were they really all that different? I ask you. Can you tell the difference? Eva Braun, Eva Wilson. Is there any difference? News at 11. Just unbelievable. But he goes to Raleigh, North Carolina the other day to campaign, does a rally. Now, folks, I want you to look at this. I'm going to play this clip in its entirety. It runs about 45 seconds. Y'all got to see this. Now think about what he looked like Thursday night. Think about what he looked like. Think about what he sounded like. Think about, whatever articulation was coming out of his mouth, and watch this and tell me what's going on. I got it.
America's not a losing nation. America's winning. As I stand here today, I can honestly say I've never been more optimistic about America's future in my whole career. I know how to tell the truth. When you get knocked down, you get back up. I know what it'll take to bring this economy to everybody. I give you my word as a Biden, I would not be running again if I didn't believe with all my heart and soul I can do this job. We've never fully lived up to it. I'll be damned in the year 2024, just 2 years. Just 2 years before the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence, that I'll let Donald Trump walk away from it. We're the United States of America. There is nothing beyond our capacity. Nothing.
Okay, yeah, you guys are already saying it in chat. I'm going to read some of these comments and post them up here because y'all are thinking the same thing I am. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's cocaine, but something's going on here. He looks tanned. He looks fired up. I mean, you call it cocaine. I say someone took an electric cattle prod and shocked him in the ass. But this is night and day from Thursday night. Now, I don't mean that's, there's a certain amount of ironic truth to that. Yes, it is night and day. He was debating at night and he's campaigning in the daytime. Well, I haven't got it pulled up, But there's an article at Axios this morning where his staffers are like, well, between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., he's really sharp. He's on his game, yada, yada, yada. But, if it gets later in the evening, he has verbal slip-ups, and occasionally he mixes things up. And I'm like, oh, quit covering for this guy. His brain is succotash from 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening and 7 the next morning. TBA says the drugs had just kicked in about the time he went to North Carolina on Friday. And we're going to get to that because I've got a comment to make about that too. WWG1 says, the angry Bryden. I haven't seen that version in a while. All I'm seeing now is the bumbling Bryden. TBA is like Sundowners does all that to Alzheimer's patients. They nailed Reagan for taking naps in the afternoon. Okay. We've got to address a couple things. I'm going to put a couple ideas out there, and y'all feel free to jump in on this, okay? Biden is now at and I'm trying to find the word to describe it, but I can't really do it right off the top of my head. He is at one of those points where he is screwed no matter which way he goes. Now, here's what I'm talking about. Right now, we're saying things like cocaine, Alzheimer's drugs, drugs in general, amphetamines, whatever. I mean, we're all coming up with all these things to explain the night and day difference between Joe Biden Thursday night in Atlanta and Friday in Raleigh, North Carolina. If we're sitting here thinking this, everybody else is watching Biden and watched and did the same thing we're doing now. Watched that debate Thursday night, watched him on Friday. Everybody's thinking the same thing. What's he on? What have they got him hyped up on? And this is part of it. He's incapable. WWG was almost like he's a totally different mind. And that's what everybody's going to be asking now. After Thursday night, that's one of the biggest problems that Joe Biden has. If he gives these kind of performances, which we'll get to that point here in a minute, if he gives these kind of performances all the way from here to election day, you know what's going to be in the back of everybody's mind? What's he on? What are they giving him? What are they pumping him full of? That's exactly what in one form or another, in one way of expressing it or another, in one subconscious idea or another. That's what everybody's going to be thinking. What's he on? What did they give him? Boy, those drugs are really good. Guess they dosed him correctly. Which also gets to two other points. In order to undo the damage from Thursday night, he has to act like he acted Friday all the way from now to the election. He has to. He's got no choice. Because you saw Barack Obama's tweet, and I haven't got it pulled up, but y'all, yeah, well, everybody can have a bad debate night, and his record over the past 3 years, he's brought us peace and prosperity. He just had a bad night. So now, to overcome what everybody saw with their own lying eyes, he's going to have to act like this. He's going to have to act like somebody stuck him in the butt with a cattle prod. He's going to have to act like he's hyped up on something. Why? Because for 3+ years, everybody has seen the real Joe Biden. The only difference is the White House kept telling everybody, oh, he's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. You're just looking at a Republican cheap fake. It's not true. And then, the wife walked in on her husband in bed with another woman, and he's looking at us going, now, honey, are you going to believe what I tell you, what you see with your lying eyes? 70+ million people just saw with their lying eyes what Joe Biden really is. Or better to say, what physical and mental condition this guy is in. And to undo that damage, he is going to act like Arnold Schwarzenegger from Predator between now and election day. He's got to. He's got to. There's no getting around it. But that also gets to another interesting point. The more okay, let's assume for a moment, just for the sake of assumption, that truly what the Democrats are trying to convince you of is actually true. Joe Biden simply had a bad debate night. Okay? He just didn't come off looking good. They're going to say, well, it happened. It happened to Reagan in 84 in the first debate against Mondale. It happened to our boss, Barack Obama, in the first debate against Romney in 2012. You know, the incumbent will occasionally have a bad debate night. Okay, let's just take that argument and say that it's true. All right. Then you could understand Raleigh, North Carolina yesterday. You could understand it because, all right, he had a bad night Thursday. He realized, yeah. But now here's my question. And here's the point that I'm getting to. If he does that Raleigh, North Carolina performance day in and day out and day in and day out, does that not really undermine the effect of the whole he had a bad night argument? And here's what I'm getting at. It goes back to what I said. Everybody's going to look at it and go, what have you got him on? Because nobody should be able at his age to act like that unless you're extraordinarily gifted physically, physiologically, everything else. You know? Yeah. Oh, I absolutely agree with this. I agree. I absolutely agree with this. And yeah, we're going to get to that too. We're going to get to that. Oh, y'all, I've always said I've got the smartest audience on the internet. And by God, you all are on fire this morning before I can even get to this stuff. You're already there. All right. Now, as we sat here and watched Joe Biden in Raleigh, North Carolina, we were not the only ones, obviously pointing out the fact that something seemed radically different from Thursday night. A panel discussion is held on CNN between Caitlin Collins, who, that woman just, I don't know. I just look at her and get mad. And it's not her fault. It's just she's got that smug expression on her face all the time. I just want to smack the thing off of her. Anyway. David Axelrod, Scott Jennings, who used to work for Mitch McConnell, a couple of other CNN anchors. They're sitting around a table. They're talking about this thing. Folks, do me a favor and listen to this. This is interesting.
Mitchell and Drew was talking about how great President Biden was today in North Carolina. Obviously, as we noted, the clear differences in that. But just to look at them side by side is also quite remarkable. Look at this.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
When you get knocked down, you get back up.
Get off my lawn, you dirty kids.
I know what it took to take our economy from the depths of the pandemic to where it is today, the strongest economy in the world.
I mean, it's like night and day to see the differences there.
It is. When I saw that today, it reminded me of the 2012, the first debate for President Obama, which didn't go well. And one of the things that we stressed was we had an event scheduled the next day. You got to be pumped. You got to be pumped and show life and so on. So this looked very familiar to me, but it is, we didn't have that problem. We didn't have, he was 50 years old. The problem wasn't, is he, with it. He was just buried in details. But this is different because it's very hard they were different circumstances, but it's hard to recognize the guy we saw today in the guy we saw last night. And last night was a pretty consequential night.
Okay, and that sort of makes the point, doesn't it?
I was young, my dream has been to open it.
Okay, that sort of makes the point. And the more the press shows that contrast, it's going to make it worse for Biden. I mean, even David Axelrod, who's a Democrat's Democrat, okay, this guy worked in 2 Obama campaigns, worked in the White House as counsel to the president, is saying it's kind of hard to explain the difference between last night and today. Yeah, I mean, let's get to this. Let's get to this. I mean, like I said a moment ago, we're talking about, we're throwing around words like cocaine and uppers and drugs and whatever. I'll just, for the sake of argument, all right, for the sake of argument, let's just say none of it is true. They are giving him nothing, not one stimulant, not even a cup of coffee with caffeine in it. Have we reached the point, as the population of America that's going to vote in this election, have we reached the point where it doesn't matter what we're told about what they are or are not giving him? We're just going to look at Joe Biden and go, he's on something. I mean, are we? I think we are. I think we have reached the point that you look at the unevenness, and I'm being very diplomatic with that, the unevenness of his physical, mental, and speaking performances, and you sit there and go, there is something wrong with this man, and they're trying to compensate for it. Now, how they're compensating, I don't know, but they're compensating for it. WWG1 over on Rumble says, I think it's the result of a bee sting. I'd be angry too. Yeah. Well, then I'll tell you this. This guy's going to get bee stung a whole lot between now and November. Buddy, he going to look like one giant bee sting before it's all over with. TBA says, the poor bees have to suck those drugs into their little systems. Yeah, dude, oh my gosh. Yeah. This is madness what we're doing here. Just absolutely crazy. And by the way, so we've seen the debate, we've seen the immediate aftermath, we've seen the way that Jill Biden is handling her husband, we've seen Biden on Friday performing in North Carolina, emphasis on the word performing. I think it's time to go get what I call wisdom from the old heads. I like to get perspective, especially from people who've been around for a while. Now, I may not agree with these reporters or these commentators, but these are guys with a lot of gray hair on their head. And I'm not necessarily saying that grants them wisdom, but it does grant them perspective. Bob Woodward, legendary writer from the Washington Post, author, columnist, and on the editorial staff, is being interviewed by a so-and-so at MSNBC. And his reaction to the debate is telling. Watch this.
His performance was, I sat there and watched it, and I could not believe it. I said, not only is this a political hydrogen bomb for him and the Democratic Party, what happened? What happened? And I think something happened, and if you look back at this, he holed up for days working on this, preparing for it. He knew its significance. Somebody who is a practiced politician like Biden will internalize and rehearse lines. There must have been some of that, but he got thrown off his own game somehow. And I really think there is some sort of very large explanation for this, because it was it was almost impossible.
Bob, I mean, look, I can answer that for you. It's not hard to understand why he did what he did. It's because he did what he did because he can't do what he used to do. And everybody saw it the other night. There's a clip, and I haven't got it, but I wish I did. Chris Wallace, again, somebody who's been around for a long time. They're having a post-debate discussion on CNN, and one of the, I think it was Aaron Burnett, said, he's like, he had 10 days to prepare for this. Which, remember, everybody talks about that 7 days at Camp David. He was off for 3 days at some mini vacation up his house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. So we're talking 10 days of not doing president stuff. 10 days of not traveling around the country and actively campaigning or talking to fundraisers or talking to money people or whatever it is you're doing, okay? And after 10 days, and God knows how many mock debates and a fake debate stage that they set up for him, which is fine. No problem with that. I kind of expect that sort of thing. After setting up the rules of the debate to advantage Joe Biden in every conceivable way possible, and they did, and Trump gave it to him, which everybody thought, and I agreed, I thought Trump was walking straight into a trap. To go to something WWG1 said over on Rumble. Trump said, okay, you want no audience? Fine. You want these terms? Fine. Give it to you. I'll spot you. I'll spot you the ball. I'll spot you a 5-point lead. Go on. Let's play a basketball game till 10. First 1 to 10 wins, you got to win by 2, and I'll spot you 5 points. Trump gave him everything he wanted, and still, Biden couldn't do it. And you know what Chris Wallace's response was? The question answers itself. Biden can't do it because he can't do it. And I thought, wow. Yeah, and Ruben, good morning to you, sir. And again, much thanks for the other night. Yeah, everybody in the press is throwing him under the bus. The one column that I saw comes from a guy I have, and I don't agree with him politically on much of anything, but I have immense amounts of respect for him. Jeff Greenfield. And this is a cat that's been around for a long time. If you don't know anything about Greenfield, I've got some, you've probably seen him on CNN or ABC, maybe CBS News over the years, etc. And just to give you an idea of the perspective that this guy's got, to tell you how long he's been around, let me read some of this for you. As far as his career, Jeff Greenfield was hired as a speechwriter for Senator Robert F. Kennedy. He worked on the 1968 presidential campaign for RFK. Greenfield has worked as a chief speechwriter for New York Mayor John Lindsay. He worked for 7 years as a political consultant. Over the years, Greenfield is reported primarily on domestic politics in the media, occasionally on culture. He's appeared on Firing Line as early as 1968. He hosted a national public television show called CEO Exchange. He served as a media commentator for CBS from 1979 to 1983 and worked at ABC from 1983 to 1997. He worked at CNN from 1998 to 2007. In 2007, he went back to CBS. He's hosted a show on PBS from 2010 to... I'm saying all this not necessarily to blow up the guy's resume. I'm trying to show you this guy's got serious perspective. We're talking, 68 to now, 56 years involved in American politics. This guy's been around the block, okay? So when somebody like a Jeff Greenfield writes something, like I said, I may not agree with him, but I want to listen to what he's got to say. And he had a piece in Politico. I'm going to drop the link to this in chat in both places because y'all know my habit. If I find something really good, I'll pass it on to you. But I think you guys are going to want to read this. You might have to sign up for not paying anything for Politico, but if they ask you for an email address, don't be shocked. Okay, I'm just saying. Forewarning. But I want to read this piece. It's not very long, but boy, is it good. From Jeff Greenfield, the worst debate performance in American history. Despite spewing a series of lies, Trump came off looking better than Biden. Again, this is from Jeff Greenfield. It's likely to be the most quoted line of the evening. I really don't know what he said at the end of that last sentence, and I don't think he did either. The problem for President Joe Biden is that well before Donald Trump said that, Biden partisans from one end of the country to the other were saying pretty much the same thing. Not to put too fine a point on it, but this was the worst performance of any general election presidential candidate in any debate in modern American history. Nothing in the past, not Richard Nixon's sweat in 1960, or Ronald Reagan's serpentine wandering down memory lane in 1984, not Barack Obama's vacuous indifference in 2012, comes close to what we witnessed, through the hands that covered millions of eyes. Biden's performance, from his first rushed, unfocused answer on the economy to his disjointed closing statement, suggested he was utterly unprepared to make a coherent argument for his second term. Biden's efforts to confront Trump on his lies, and there was a tsunami of dishonesty, from Trump's ridiculous notion that every constitutional scholar wanted to end Roe v. Wade, to his claim that he never labeled servicemen and women suckers and losers, despite his former chief of staff confirming it, were often as hard to understand as his substantive points. The Biden campaign was eager to hold a debate to prove their 81-year-old candidate had what it took to serve as president for another 4 years, and that he looked good next to a deranged authoritarian like Trump. Instead, within minutes of the debate's start, calls for Biden to step aside from the Democrat nomination were mounting, and we're going to get to that here in a minute too. But there is another point worth noting, since it is likely to be overwhelmed by the all-out lamentations over Biden's performance. Now listen to this. Donald Trump was a disciplined, focused debater. I can't believe I just wrote those words, but contrary to the confident assertions that many Trump watchers, he was relatively constrained. He actually resorted to something resembling a policy argument at times, and frequently managed to pivot from a difficult issue. For instance, when asked about whether he had violated his oath of office on January 6th, Trump cited the low inflation, full employment, and generally sunny conditions on that day. On abortion, he was striking clearly moderate tones, noting that some states had embraced liberal policies, others less so, while accusing Democrats of being the extremists. On abortion, he stressed the cost of taxpayers and the impact on Black and Hispanic workers. Were many of those answers accompanied by flat-out falsehoods? Of course. No, Nancy Pelosi did not say she was responsible for the disorder on January 6th. Yes, January 6th was an insurrection supported by Trump. Biden tried to pin Trump down there, but it was far from clear that he broke through. There were also moments when Trump could not resist being Trump, calling Biden a criminal after attempting to soften his promise of retribution, explaining why he'd become the best president ever, and triggering a genuinely silly argument about golf handicaps. But if you think back all the way to 2 to 3 days ago, with confident predictions that Trump would rage on long after his microphone was turned off, this was a Trump that, grading on a sharp curve, was under control. If there's any solace to Biden supporters, is that Trump did not turn to a broader theme of promising a second term with less divisiveness, nor could he resist resorting to personal assaults. Some things are beyond imagination. For Biden's partisans, Trump's effect will count for much less than his provocations. They will demand to know why the moderators did not fact-check in real time. Spoiler alert, that's not the moderator's job. It's the candidate's job. In fact, CNN and Jake Tapper did first-rate work, and I want to agree with that with Greenfield. I said it that night. I've said it to anybody I've talked to since then. Honestly, I thought Jake Tapper and Dana Bash acquitted themselves very well. Some of the questions were a little, okay. But by and large, they did a great job. CNN did a great job with the debate. They really did. I've got nothing to complain about anywhere around. Either of the network that hosted it or the moderators who handled the debate. They were great. Anyway, back to the article. They will argue that Biden did better at this debate as the debate went on, provided you don't count the closing statement, which bookended the incoherence of his first answer. Their sharpest questions, however, might be directed at the team of experienced, seasoned debate prep mavens who are now doing Google searches about witness protection. Oh gosh, that's a great line. That's a great line. As for the rest of the Democrat Party, I suspect there will be even more urgent searches looking into the details of convention rules and just how bound are these delegates. And that is a great piece. That is a great piece by Jeff Greenfield. WWG1 says, not the moderator's job. He sure changed his tune. That's not what he said in the past. Oh, everybody's changing their tune about what is not supposed to be happening during a debate. So, now let us get to what is the great raging controversy. Maybe not for America, because I got a funny feeling America's made up its mind after Thursday night. Let's talk about the great raging debate that's going on, especially inside the Democrat Party and for political junkies like me. Y'all, I don't call you all political junkies. You guys are normal people that come here to watch me just, get my fix on politics and watch my physical reactions. Oh, you have got, ever since Thursday night, you have the media in just meltdown mode. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, and I was commenting about this with Ruben. Normally, if a Democrat has a bad debate night or missteps on anything, the press is there to, convince you that what you saw with your lying eyes is not true, right? Not this time. I mean, wait a minute. Wait a second. Yes, I'm calling you. Well, I don't know. I call you normies per se, but I'm just saying you're not political junkies. Maybe you are, and I don't realize it. But okay, fine. Or at least not junkie like me. How about that? Let's do that. All right, I get you, Corey. You're cool. Don't worry. I've never seen the media turn on a Democrat like this. Now, and a lot of people have been asking the question: is this what was planned? In other words, was he set up to fail so everybody in the media could be like, get out of the race, get that bum out of here, get him off the stage, boo, he sucks. I don't know. No idea. All I know is watching the immediate aftermath, the night of, and the days after, it was just incredible. I've never seen this. Never. From the pages of the New York Times editorial board, to serve his country, Biden should leave the race. They are literally calling on him to get out. This is the New York Times. It ain't Breitbart. It's not Real America. It's not Real America's Voice. It's not Steve Bannon. It's not, Crowder. It's not Tim Pool. It's not any. This is the New York Times. The liberals. Okay? They want him out of the race. Now, there are some commentators, and I think appropriately so, that are asking a more important question. And for the sake of being completely fair about this, I think we need to address this. Everybody saw in live time what Joe Biden looked like the other night. Why are we not talking about the 25th Amendment? Is anybody really feeling good about knowing that Joe Biden is the president for the next 4 months till the election and then 2 months until the inauguration? Anybody feeling real good about this? I'm not. In case you're wondering what I mean by the 25th Amendment, I'm going to pop this up here. This deals with the question of presidential disability or succession. I want to go to Section 4. When the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall immediately assume the powers and the duties of the office of acting president. Thereafter, when the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless the vice president and a majority of the principal officers of the executive department or of such other bodies as Congress may by law provide transmit within 4 days to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. Thereupon, Congress shall decide the issue, assembling within 48 hours. The point being, if he truly is as bad off as everybody says he is, and frankly, now what everybody has seen him to be, why are we not invoking the 25th Amendment? WWG1 asks, she's not native born, talking about Kamala Harris. Can she assume those duties? That's an even better question. I hadn't even thought about that point. Folks, and I mean, there are better commentators than me who have made this point, but it's worth saying. Lay aside the politics of this whole situation, okay? And y'all know me. I love getting in the weeds on this kind of stuff, okay? If he truly is as bad off as we all believe and think him to be, and frankly, I don't think after Thursday night it's beyond dispute anymore. Okay? Yes, the Democrats are going to try everything in the world to make him look vigorous and robust, and they're going to try to do Raleigh, North Carolina every day between now and November 5th. I don't have an ounce of doubt about that in my mind. And it won't work. It will not work. I mean, it might work with a very tiny percentage of people, but with the overwhelming majority of Americans, the perception is set in. They're going to see that every day, and they're going to go, wow, those drugs really are kicked in this time. Or they're going to look at him and go, aren't you guys trying just a little bit too hard here? I mean, if he had a bad day, that's fine. I expect him to bounce back the next day. I don't expect him to bounce back every day for 4.5 months. You get my point? It's not going to work. But if he's truly as bad off as we all know him to be, for the sake of national security, why are we not invoking the 25th Amendment? We all watched what he was doing the other night. You don't think that Xi Jinping, the premier in China, Rocket Man in North Korea, Kim Jong-un, you don't think our other enemies around the world are not watching this going, y'all are a paper tiger over there. Boys, I think we have the liberty now to do whatever we want because their president can't stand up to us. Let's just, hey, generals, yeah, you know those plans you had to do thus and such? Dust them off. Let me look at them again. I think we're ready to roll. The Americans aren't going to be a problem now after watching Biden. Now, let's flip that coin back around for just a second. Let's talk about Kamala Harris. Okay? If rumors are to be believed, okay? If rumors are to be believed, then she's pissed as hell right now. Why? Because everybody's talking Gavin Newsom. Gavin, come save us. Oh, please, Gavin. Please, please, please. Come save us. And she's sitting there going, wait a minute, what am I, chopped liver? which we're going to, and I'm bringing this up because it's going to get to a big problem with all these theories about replacing Biden. But the press is turning on him. Democrats are turning on him. Donors are turning on him. Look at this. Here's a report from Breitbart. Donors are backing away from Joe Biden after the debate. This is an article written by Wendell Husebo. President Joe Biden's widely criticized debate performance reportedly caused Democrat donors to turn their back on the president. Pressure is mounting on Biden to step down, as many Democrats and media members displayed hysteria following a disastrous Thursday night. Democrat donors backed out of attending Biden's Friday event, New York Times reporter Kenneth P. Vogel revealed Friday in a now-deleted X post. Quote, I'm hearing from some Democrat donors are backing out of a fundraiser tonight at the Hammerstein Ballroom in Manhattan with Elton John. The report appears to confirm additional reporting from the establishment media. Joe Biden urged to drop out by election by Democrats, officials, and donors after the debate, the UK Daily Telegraph reported. Possibly so. Now, everybody wants Biden to drop out. Is he going to do it? Well, not according to Biden. Check this out from CNN the other morning.
Well, John, the Biden team, as of this moment, plans to pack up what few wins they had on the debate stage last night. You've already seen some of those packaged and posted on social media, and to move on and focus on what's coming down the pike. There are no plans, I'm told, for the president to drop out of the race. And even further, I'm told that the president is still committed to a second debate in September, which is currently scheduled for September 10th and hosted by ABC News, much along the lines of the rules of the debate that was hosted last night. Now, the advisor that I spoke with said that they're not putting too much stock in the conversation last night, and that many of the staffers on the campaign and in the White House also worked on President Obama's reelection in 2012, and they tried to draw the parallel to that first debate that was a very low performance for President Obama. Even he would call it a stinker, and they said if you had believed the pundits in the wake of that debate, Mitt Romney would have been president after that.
Okay, so as it stands right now, Biden's absolutely saying, I'm not backing out. But that sort of begs a very interesting question, and I think it ought to be addressed. Who's advising Biden? I mean, we all sit around and ask ourselves the question, who's calling the shots? Well, Axios had a piece this morning. Behind the curtain, Biden's oligarchy will decide his fate, by Mike Allen and Jim Vandehei. We have the following. Forget the pundits, ignore the New York Times editorial and columnists, tune out people popping off on Twitter. The only way Joe Biden steps aside, despite his debate debacle, is if the small group of lifelong loyalists who enabled his run suddenly and shockingly decide it's time for him to call it quits. Dr. Jill Biden, his younger sister Valerie Biden, and 85-year-old Ted Kaufman, the president's longtime friend and constant advisor, plus a small band of White House advisors are the only Biden deciders. This decades-long kitchen cabinet operates as an extended family, council of elders, and governing oligarchy. These allies alone hold sway over decisions big and small in Biden's life and presidency. I have said all along that the only way Joe Biden gets out of this race is if Jill convinces him to do it. Now, they list, Biden's sister. That's fine. I have no doubt he respects her opinion. I have no doubt he respects the opinion of this Ted Kaufman, who's been with him for years. And maybe Biden does give some respect to his White House staff, depending on who they are, and if I may say, depending on how old they are. But in the end, if you want to get Joe Biden to do something, you've got to convince Jill. And I'm sorry, I am of the opinion you're not going to convince her. You're just not going to do it. I mean, even the New York Times recognizes that Jill Biden is the one person you've got to convince in all this, okay? So the Democrats want him out. the press is doing everything it can to get him out. I mean, here's the cover of Time magazine after Thursday night. And panic is probably the kindest word for what's going on here. That article from Time magazine, there's one part of it I want to address, and that's going to lead us to something else. Inside the Biden's debate disaster and the scramble to quell the Democrat panic. Article written by Philip Elliott. I want to go to one part of this. Give me a second here. Here we go. When a candidate biffs, that's an interesting expression for it, it's expected that a loyal aide will take the fall, and few have more experience in throwing people under the bus than Joe Biden. And that's very true because they go on to list a whole bunch of different examples. Getting a little bit further into this. Okay, here we go. If Biden could be convinced to step aside, there would be chaos inside the party unlike anything in 1968. Vice President Kamala Harris would start with advantages of incumbency, but her approval numbers are low. She would be vulnerable to a challenge. Prominent contenders, normally jockeying for 28, but all but quietly talked about the possibility as Biden replacements in 24, include Governors Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, Gavin Newsom of California, and J.B. Pritzker of Illinois. Now, this gets to the million-dollar question in the debate. Can Joe Biden be replaced? See, everybody's talking about we've got to replace him. That sort of begs the million-dollar question. Can you even replace him at this point? Well, I got a couple of clips from one of my favorite content creators and pollsters, and you all will hear me refer to him quite often. That's Richard Barris, the People's Pundit. He had Sean Parnell as a guest on his show on Friday, and I've got to play you a couple of clips because this gets really interesting. Now, remember, you got the media screaming that Biden's got to go. You got Democrat donors backing off of Biden. You got everybody just shouting from the rooftops. He's got to go. Good morning to you, sir, from down under. But you're all right. We're going to have all kinds of fun anyway. You're all good. Everybody's screaming he's got to go. But the problem is, can you get him to go? And frankly, even if you could get him to go, is it too late to get him to go? I'm going to pull this up. And Sean Parnell brings up a fabulous point. Check this out. You're going to be real interested to hear this. Well, if it's going to play, hang on a second, folks.
And I think Joe Biden is like irreparably damaged by this, but
and Rick, this talk of we're going to replace Biden or this,
brother. I
listen,
mean, good luck.
Like what people let me just see if I can just run down this process.
Yeah, thank you. You ran for office. Can you please explain to people even just the office you ran for? How difficult it would be to swap a candidate at this point?
It's just legally. We're not even talking. Legally. Yes. I'm not even talking. I don't even want to talk about. Well, let's just talk about the Democrat rules, right?
Right.
If they cleared the great irony of this is that the fact that they rigged their own elections is going to come back to bite them in the ass in a huge way, because if you're in a Democrat primary, running in a Democrat primary state, and you get over 15% of the vote, those delegates are bound to you, which means at the convention, if you get 15% or more of the vote as a Democrat primary candidate in the first round of voting, those voters have to, in accordance with Democrat bylaws, they've got to vote for you.
Yep.
Here's the thing. The Democrats rigged the primary for Biden. So he has all the delegates. Also, Biden appointed the DNC chair. Biden appointed the DNC co-chair. The DNC is stacked with Biden loyalists. And so there is no mechanism with which to remove this guy. And oh, by the way, he thinks he's doing a bang-up job. Jill thinks he's doing a bang-up job. He still wields enormous power of the presidency. So everyone's going to tiptoe around him when they try to, no one's going to really be able to truly push the envelope. And so the only way, so, okay, Biden voluntarily steps aside. That's why people are trying to push him to do it. But at that point, all he could do is call on his delegates to vote for whoever his chosen candidate is, but there's no guarantee that they will. And you could end up with an absolute shit show, a cannibalistic, power-hungry Democrat shit show of a brokered convention when they have their convention of people just trying to clamor for power very, very late in the game. So it's just, and I didn't even touch on all the FEC regulations, fundraising regulations, the fact that in Nevada and in Georgia and in Wisconsin, it's almost damn near impossible to take his name off the ballot and replace him with somebody else. Like the Democrats are in deep, deep trouble. There's to me, unless something like, and I always caveat everything I say with this, Democrats have an enormous amount of control, and they.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there because there's a bunch of stuff to unpack. Okay, and this is part of why I wanted to play this clip. Parnell brings up a lot of great points. Let's go through them one by one, or at least as I can do it. Okay. You're a Democrat running for president in a particular state. You get 15% or more of the vote. That assigns you a certain measure of delegates. Guess what? Those delegates are yours. Okay. They cannot vote for anybody else. Point number 2. And this is true, and we talked about this way back, even before the primaries happened. And during the primaries, how the Democrat Party at the state level, in some cases, were just flat out rigging, or at the national level, or in combination, rigging their primaries so that Joe Biden would get every stinking delegate. Okay? Or at a bare minimum, someone like a Marianne Williamson or a Dean Phillips might get 1, maybe 2 delegates. Insignificant, piddly nothing, okay? So Biden gets all the delegates. By the bylaw, number 3, by the bylaws of the Democrat convention, they are bound to him through the first ballot. If he were going to release them, he can only do it after the first ballot at the convention. Okay? But even if he releases them and he declares, I'm not running for re-election, where do they go? I mean, Parnell makes the point, he works from the assumption that Biden declares his anointed, replacement. Okay. Just because Joe Biden declares, okay, I'm releasing you and I want you to vote for this person, there's no guarantee whatsoever that those delegates are going to do what they're told. They might get angry and bitter and be like, I believed in Joe Biden. I wanted to vote for him and now I can't do it. Oh, screw you all. Hence 1968 Chicago all over again. Well, okay, Daniel, that's a great question. I don't know. What if okay. Again, I don't know. I'm going to be straight up with you. I don't know. All right, let's just take it one step here at a time here. The delegates are pledged to him. If, assuming, God forbid, what would happen is what you're asking. If it's before the convention, surely the rules would allow for those delegates to go somewhere else. If it's after the convention, moot point. But there's also another consideration which Parnell points to. There are already state laws in place about how, if, when, and how you can replace someone's name on the ballot. Well, some of those states are so strict with this stuff, they ain't no getting Joe Biden off there. He's already on the ballot. You're stuck with, and TBA's been saying this over in Rumble Chat, and brother, I promise, I'm not ignoring you. QED, the Dems are stuck with Joe Biden to the bitter end. I mean, this might be the biggest case of buyer's remorse in the history of American politics. You bought it, you want to take it back, and you can't do it. There you go. All right, a couple more points from Barris and Parnell. Now, this is a tweet that Richard Barris put out, and another great point on his part. You cannot just replace Joe Biden as easily as pundits and influencers claim. There are state laws, party procedures, optics to consider. Lyndon Johnson, and this is the analogy everybody goes back to, but Barris brings up a really great point. Lyndon Johnson announced in March of 1968 he would not accept his party's nomination to run for re-election. It's now June. Well, actually, it's not. In about a little over 36 hours, we're going to be in July. Okay? Which was going to put it August, September, October, 4 months to the election. Okay? Plus, as Barris points out, they'd have to upend their entire process beyond anything anyone understands and tell millions of voters their vote meant nothing to the process, then leapfrog the first non-white female vice president. No, that's the problem. The Democrats know that if she goes nose to nose with Trump, Trump's going to beat her worse than what he may beat Biden. And they know this. They've seen the polling. Well, now see, now this is a good question too. Let me try and address this as I understand it. And again, I am no expert on Democrat convention rules, okay? I just add that caveat up front. If, God forbid, something happened to Biden that he could not be the Democrat Party's nominee prior to the convention, it's not an automatic foregone conclusion that she would be the presidential nominee. Yeah, she's on the ticket as the Veep, but I don't think there's a provision that allows for her to just slide up into the top slot. She would have to fight at the convention for the same delegates that Joe Biden went out and fought for in his incumbent presidency. Okay, one more clip from Barris and Parnell. There's also another big reason why Joe Biden cannot just walk away from this thing. Or maybe it's better to say there's a big family reason why Joe cannot walk away from this thing. I play you this clip from Barris and Parnell, and listen very carefully to what Parnell says next.
You're right. You're going to do that? I don't think you can.
Rich, can I mention something else that nobody's talked about? This is perhaps one of the most important points. Hunter Biden. He is still facing a ton of IRS cases in September.
I'm getting there. Yeah.
But Biden can pardon him for existing crimes, but there are still charges coming down the pike for this guy. And Hunter Biden, the last thing that Joe wants is for Hunter Biden to be in a hot seat of yet to be charged crimes where he's pointing the finger at Joe Biden and Joe Biden's not president anymore.
That's why I think that, because I try to explain this to people, the Bidens are not just fighting for their political future. They're fighting for their future, period. Their financial future, their future of their liberty. And I really think so if you're them right now, and they've already proven themselves to be fanatics who will do whatever it is they need to do to win an election or to hold power. Forget about winning an election. That's the wrong way to say it. They will do whatever they need to do to hold on to power, even whether it's legitimate or not. Winning an election legitimately or not enough. I can't stand it when people.
Yeah, you get my point. There's the Hunter factor. Joe cannot afford to announce that he's not going to seek re-election, because let's assume he does that. Hunter Biden's federal trial out in California starts in September. If that trial goes past January 20th of next year and Joe Biden's not the president, if something bad happens to Hunter, then Joe Biden can't do anything about it. They sentence him to jail, assuming that he cannot win on appeal. He's going to jail. Because I don't think anybody thinks that Hunter Biden's going to see a day's worth of jail time because of that gun charge in Delaware he got found guilty on. Dad's going to take care of that one. But if Dad doesn't have the ability to take care of the tax stuff, then yeah, Hunter's up the creek. And if it is truly to be believed that Joe cares about his son, is scared about addiction and relapse and all that, that's one factor. The other factor is, from a purely self-preservation standpoint, if Hunter doesn't think he can get his get out of jail free card, what stops him from flipping on Daddy? and I hate to say it that way, but it's true. It's absolutely true. What stops him from flipping on Dad? So practically speaking, they can't get him off the ballot, which we're going to get to that here in just a second. I've got a tweet from Charlie Kirk, and it refers back to an article from the UK Daily Mail. But I want to show you this. I mean, when people are arguing that the Democrats are stuck with Biden, there's a reason why they're saying it, among other things. From Charlie Kirk. This is big. It's already too late to remove Biden from the ballot. Wisconsin, Nevada, Georgia. From the Daily Mail, take a look a little further into this tweet, and this is what is pointed out. Wisconsin does not allow withdrawal from the ballot for any reason besides death. In Nevada, no changes can be made to the ballot after 5 p.m. on the fourth Friday of June. That's a mistake, by the way. I'll prove why here in a minute. But you see the point. With every day that passes by, depending upon the state you're talking about, if Joe Biden's on that ballot, he's going to be locked in. Now, I say that somebody made a mistake on Nevada. Let me show you something that I found independently on my own. This is from the Nevada Secretary of State's website. Okay? This is their election calendar. Now, that article from the UK Daily Mail says that as of yesterday, Joe Biden is on the ballot. Well, not quite correct. It's not so much last month, unless I'm misinterpreting what I'm seeing here. But according to this, check this out. And I'll try and blow this up as best I can here. Here it is. This is what I'm looking for. Notice the date, July 26th. Change to the general election ballot. No changes after 5 p.m. on the fourth Friday in July. That would be July 26th. No changes can be made to the general election ballot after this date. That's the magic date in July, the 26th. And that's just one example. But my point is this. With every passing day, there are states with deadlines. Okay? Those deadlines are locked in. Once those dates go by, Joe Biden, the DNC, Gavin Newsom could do whatever the heck they want. Those laws are locked into place. The only way you get them to change is if you get the state legislature and the governor to sign off on a change to the law. And keep in mind, that means going through Republican legislatures and in some case Republican governors, and they're not going to be too inclined to help the Democrats at all. Nor should they be, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I mean, there is so much here that it's astounding where we're at. Just astounding. Now, there is one other factor that we have not talked about. And it bears commenting on. Because this was mentioned by a lot of people in my chat the other night, on Thursday night when we were covering the debate. And it definitely is something that no one's thinking about yet. For Trump supporters, they watched the debate the other night. They watched Trump manhandle Joe Biden. Okay, all right. Gypsy, all right, let me take a look at this. All right, let me finish my point now. We'll get to this. We'll get to this. We'll take a look at it. There is one very big factor that Trump supporters are maybe not thinking about. And Gypsy rightly pointed this out the other night, so I give her credit. This is a clip from part of the rally on Friday in Raleigh, North Carolina.
He's got more trials coming up. Time for that.
Did you just catch what he said? The crowd is chanting to Joe Biden, lock him up, referring to Donald Trump. What did Joe Biden say? Well, there's time for that. There's time for that. The sentencing on Trump's Manhattan trial takes place July the 11th, 5 days before 4 or 5 days before the start of the Republican National Convention. Remember, Trump was found guilty on 34 counts in Juan Marchand's courtroom. What stops Marchand from putting Trump in jail? Now, do I know he's going to do that? I have no idea what Marchand's going to do. But at this point, nothing that happens in all of this surprises me. I mean, what's going to happen, in my prediction, in the next 10 days, you're going to see Donald Trump get a bump in the polls. I was talking about this the other night with a buddy of mine named Smiling Jack. I said, what do you think? He said 5 points. I said, well, I was thinking 3. So the great political prognosticators that we are, and I don't think this is too far out. I don't think this is too far of a stretch. Trump's going to get a bump of about probably 3 to 5 points conservatively in most polls that come out between now and July the 11th. And Trump right now is on a roll. Trump's raising money all over the place. He's got donors coming out of the woodwork. You got big time money people, Silicon Valley money people dropping in. You got, old school Republican donors that, maybe they weren't really wild about Trump. They're laying down some cash. You got rallies like he had in Chesapeake, Virginia the other day. Big crowd, huge crowd. He's leading nationally in the polls, albeit before the debate by probably 1 to 2 points, depending on whose poll you look at. I mean, Donald Trump is on a roll right now. And on top of all that, he just went into Atlanta, Georgia, and manhandled Joe Biden in a presidential debate. What stops Juan Marchand from putting Donald Trump in jail? Oh, well, the sentencing of Donald Trump has nothing to do with the political campaign. Really? So Juan Marchand, who has a conflict of interest because of his daughter, who's a major fundraiser for the Democrat Party, Juan Marchand has, and by the way, Juan Marchand has donated to Joe Biden in the past, albeit not large amounts of money, but in violation of New York Code of Ethics laws for jurists. Juan Marchand is going to ignore the politics of all of this and independently on his own hand down a sentence that has nothing whatsoever to do with what's going on in this presidential election. I'm sorry, I ain't buying it. I am not buying it. Juan Marchand did not give Donald Trump a fair trial in New York City during that whole debacle that went on, and I have not an ounce of doubt whatsoever that it's not past Juan Marchand to put Donald Trump in jail. Do I want to see that happen? God, no, I don't. For any number of different reasons, but for the love of God, the ties that bind us together as an American society are frayed enough. He puts Donald Trump in jail and he risks tearing it apart. Or let's say he doesn't put him in jail, puts him under house arrest. That's just crazy. What's he can't travel to Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin? That's madness. TBA says if Marchand puts Trump in jail, he'll send him right to the White House. You're absolutely right. The Right Honorable John McGarvey says he's issuing house arrest. Okay, we'll see. We'll see. All right, hang on a second, folks. I want to take a look at these articles that Gypsy sent out. Okay, we'll start with the New Yorker magazine. Hang on a second. Let's pull this up. I mean, you got guys like Barris and Parnell and others out there saying, it's not going to happen. Let's see what we have here. Take a look at the contrarian's view. Or this is possible too, which is why I think the Republicans ought to just go ahead and by acclamation prior to the convention, just go ahead and vote have the delegate vote before July 11th. There was one Republican congressman that suggested this, and he absolutely ought to do it. Just go ahead and just shove it down Marchand's throat. Okay, here stands before you the declared Republican nominee by his party. His party has voted him to be their national leader on the ticket. Are you going to put him in jail? What do you want to do? Anyway, let's take a look at this article from the New Yorker magazine. Let me get a quick sip here. All right. Yes, Democrats can still replace Biden. Okay. From Ed Kilgore, we have the following. Editor's note, this piece originally ran in February 24. We are republishing it this morning. Now the talk of replacing Biden has exploded following his disastrous debate performance. One product of what some are calling Oldgate, a panic over special counsel Robert Hur suggestion that Joe Biden is an elderly man with memory issues, has been media efforts to understand and explain how Democrats could replace the 46th president as their 24 nominee with or without his consent. From a political perspective, the idea that Biden might be dumped from the ticket is extremely far-fetched, but technically it is possible, although increasingly complicated right up to Election Day. When it comes to changing horses in the middle of a presidential race, Democrats differ from Republicans in one fundamental respect. While the GOP rules bind delegates to the candidate who wins primaries or caucuses, the Democrats have a moral rather than a legal obligation to remain faithful to their candidate. 14 states have laws that seek to bind delegates to the winning candidate, but it's reasonably clear that party rules supersede such laws when they conflict. In most states, delegates are released from their obligations if the candidate withdraws from the race. Another difference between the parties is that the Democrats have established a set of unpledged delegates who hold convention seats by virtue of elected or party offices they hold. These superdelegates don't get to vote unless there's a second presidential ballot. At the 24 Democrat convention in Chicago, there are 744 superdelegates out of 4,532 total delegates. The idea that superdelegates might vote for anyone they want is largely fictional. They are chosen by campaigns to be 100% loyal to their candidate. This loyalty is fiercer when the candidate is the incumbent president of the United States, and the reason no sitting president has been denied renomination is if he wanted since Republican Chester Arthur in 1884. The idea that Democrat delegates are going to look at the polls in August and decide they can do better than Biden is nonsense. It's not going to happen. Even if faced with the emergency of avoiding Trump presidency, the Democrat Party will remain a coalition of interests and principles, not just a vehicle for winning one. But if Biden, for whatever reason, chooses to step aside, is another matter altogether. The problem for Democrat delegates won't be liberating themselves to look elsewhere. It will be agreeing upon a successor. And the closer to the convention that this decision has to be made, the likelier it is that the 4,000 plus Biden loyalists will back whoever is designated successor. Fantasies of Gretchen Whitmer or Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker or Pete Buttigieg or Michelle Obama notwithstanding, that successor will most likely be Kamala Harris. Any other choice would only infuriate Harris and her supporters. It would also retroactively label Biden's first decision as party leader in 2020 as a mistake. For better or worse, the party will unite around its new leader. The Trump factor will, if anything, give Democrats an abiding hope of victory no matter how things look a few months out. It is possible, I suppose, that Biden and Harris could decide to step aside together as an act of patriotic self-sacrifice and help design a spanking new ticket that's dressed for success. That ain't going to happen. That is not going to happen. Kamala Harris is too self-interested to let that happen. The cleanest Plan B scenario would involve some cataclysmic event happening to Biden that leads him or the party to reconsider his candidacy after the Chicago convention. In that extremely remote contingency, the DNC would have the power to name a replacement nominee, just as they did in 1972, when Vice Presidential nominee Thomas Eagleton stepped aside after revelations of DUI and shock therapy. The DNC isn't going to dump a renominated incumbent president, no matter how poorly he does in the polls. Back in the days when presidential elections weren't almost always desperately close or vulnerable to post-election challenges, one party regularly went to battle after Labor Day, knowing it was likely to lose. If Joe Biden cannot take up the cudgels for the last stages of a rematch with Trump, the party can quickly move on with Kamala Harris. All right, that's one theory of the case, which actually I'd forgotten about that point about Thomas Eagleton. Now, for those of you who may not know about this or remember, the original Democrat ticket in 1972 to take on Richard Nixon was comprised of Senator George McGovern, Democrat from South Dakota, and Senator Thomas Eagleton. But Eagleton had to drop out after the Democrat National Convention due to some information that came out about him that either McGovern's people didn't know, which I kind of have a hard time believing, or they didn't think was going to matter. The blowback when these stories about shock therapy treatments and DUIs were so bad for Tom Eagleton, he dropped out after the Democrat convention had declared him to be the vice presidential nominee. Therefore, the DNC could name Sergeant Shriver as the replacement, which is exactly what they did. Now, could they do that here? I just can't see it. Again, possible, can't see it. Let me see this other article here. Hang on. This is from Politico. It's written as of very early Friday morning, but let's take a look. And I just got confirmation from Eric that he will be here at 11:30. Okay. Let me shoot him back a real quick message. All right. Okay, let me get this pulled up real quick. Here we go. All right. Sorry about that, folks. I had them. Here's how the Democrats could replace Biden. The party would need to open a rule book not used in decades and for Biden to drop out in the first place. Panic Democrats, and this article is by Stephen Shepard, panic Democrats might be ready to shove President Joe Biden to the side, but they need him to take the first step. Within minutes of Biden's poor debate performance concluding on CNN, the network's commentators were openly discussing the possibility of replacing Biden on the ticket. For apoplectic Democrats, the good news is there is a way to do it before November. While the party technically does have a system for nominating a fresh candidate at the convention in the event the candidate declining a nomination, the entire process is a creaky one that hasn't been considered in decades. There's no mechanism by which other party leaders can throw Biden off the ticket according to the DNC's rules. Instead, if anyone in the party wants to replace him, it's through throwing it to an open nominating process on the convention floor. Biden won around 95% of the nearly 4,000 delegates in this year's primary who are pledged but not committed to backing him. That means there is no legal requirement that they vote for Biden in the roll call. Hang on one second, folks. But Biden's campaign has had a role in choosing these delegates at state conventions across the country, and at least half of them would have to spurn him in order to deny him the nomination. But if Biden agreed to decline his party's nomination, it would kick it off an open and unpredictable process of picking his replacement. Other names, Vice President Kamala Harris, Governors Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, and J.B. Pritzker, to numerous others, could be nominated in his place. The candidates who could span the Democrat Party's geographic, ideological, and generational wings would be working to sway the thousands of Democrat delegates to support them on the first ballot. The pledged delegates aren't the only ones who have a say. Democrats have stripped superdelegates of most of their power since the contentious 2016 primary. These superdelegates would be free to vote if no candidate won a majority of delegates on the first ballot. An open, contested convention would give more than 700 party insiders a major role in picking the new nominee. Biden's wishes could also be hugely important. He could try to influence the process by endorsing Harris, and she would have an argument in her favor since she already is on the ticket. But if such a scenario occurred, Biden and Harris would have to persuade them that Biden's delegates don't automatically go to her. Okay, Corey, Daniel, this sort of answers some of your questions. They don't automatically go to her, but a Biden endorsement could be enough. But there's no guarantee, and Harris's poor poll numbers give some Democrats pause. That gives them more than pause. They ain't going to do it. Even if Harris coasted to the nomination, she would need a vice presidential candidate of her own, and that would still be a fight among the party's future stars as to her running mate. Any of the Democrats' rising stars would likely be a possibility, though Newsom would be particularly unlikely unless they change their residency. A Newsom-Harris ticket would be ineligible for California's 54 votes, and there's no realistic path to the Democrat victory without them. From the moment he declared he would seek a second term, Biden and his team have insisted he is running for re-election, and Biden won every primary and caucus, capturing more than 85% of the aggregate vote, with the exception of far-flung American Samoa. But the immense pressure of a poor debate performance and further saggy poll numbers could change all that. If Biden's going to drop out, the clock is ticking. Even though the Democrat convention isn't until mid-August, the DNC is moving up the nominating process. Ohio law requires the party's candidates be determined by August 7th, and the DNC has decided to upend the traditional roll call vote to ensure their candidate is on the ballot there. That deadline is only 40 days away. That's another factor I hadn't thought about. And this Stephen Shepard's absolutely right. That issue in Ohio still hasn't been resolved. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me kind of get you guys up to speed. Ohio has a law that says that the ballot has to be set within 90 days of the general election. Well, in this case, that's August the 7th. The Democrat National Committee's the convention doesn't happen until the middle of August. So you're talking about 12 days after Ohio's deadline. Ohio's been trying to work this out with the DNC now for months. So they finally have decided what they're going to do is this. They're going to hold a virtual roll call vote. Now, if you've never watched the political conventions before, there is one night that's dedicated to what is commonly referred to as the roll call of the states. The chairman of the Democrat National Committee will go to each state and say, how do you vote? How do your delegates vote? It's pomp and circumstance for a political convention. It's a very old school thing, but each state announces their delegates who are, they declare them for the candidate. And then by acclamation, the party's nominee is declared on that night. Okay. Like I say, it's a very old custom. What the Democrats are going to do to get around the problem in Ohio is move up that vote to prior to August the 7th. In other words, they'll do a virtual roll call of the states, declare Biden to be the nominee, and that way he complies with the Ohio deadline of August 7th. Okay? So if that's the case, if this thing is even going to happen, which again, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm back and forth on this whole thing. Okay? I'm back and forth on all of it. There's moments I think it's going to happen, and and Biden's going to drop out, and there's moments I go, and there's no way he can, practically or politically. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm of two minds on this, and normally I'm not that way. I'm still more or less in the camp of it can't happen. But if it's going to happen, today's the 29th of June. The Democrats have until August the 6th to make all this happen so they can meet the deadline of August 7th in Ohio. 40 days. So we'll see. Oh my good Gypsy, thank you for sending those over. I genuinely do appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, there is. I was talking to Ruben the other night, and there are so many moving pieces. This reminds me of the inner workings of a good pocket watch. A lot of gears, a lot of springs, a lot of stuff's got to turn to make everything happen. TBA says this very situation is going to shatter the Democrat Party into 1,000 shards. I don't think you're wrong. 25th Amendment and impeachment take too long. The only way to get Biden to quit is for him and Jill to be out of the picture. TBA, I disagree with you on the 25th Amendment. Keep in mind, that only takes the vice president and a majority of the cabinet officers sending a letter to the Speaker of the House and the President Pro Tem of the Senate saying he's incapable of carrying out his constitutional duties. That wouldn't take much to do. That doesn't take long. You get everybody lined up to do it, you can make that happen fast. So yeah, this is just straight, plain crazy. So yeah. And believe it or not, after almost 2 hours, we have exhausted our very first topic of the day. Sorry, folks. Like I said, this thing has got so many angles and permutations and everything else to it. It just, I knew we were going to be in the weeds on this. I didn't think we were going to be in the weeds on this for almost 2 hours, but you see where I'm going with this. So I'll tell you what, given that I have a guest coming on here in about 7 minutes, okay, I am going to take a very fast visit of the necessary. And as I do, I will be right back. Like I say, I've got a guest coming on here in about 7 minutes. I'm going to dash for just a moment. Ruben, I'm going to vamp as much as I possibly can. But you guys stay in chat just for a second or two. I will be right back. And then we will get ready for our guest and talk about a few other things. Good question. That's a great question. But then again, who knows? Who knows at this point? All right. Real quick, I will be Okay, we're back. Can you see me? Can you feel me? Can you hear me? Quick sound check real fast. All right. As I say, we're waiting on our guest, the inestimable Mr. WWG ones. I feel you. All right. Well, there you go. I am felt. Wait a minute. That didn't come out sounding right. Okay. Cool. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're waiting on our guest, the right honorable Mr. Eric Abbenante, comedian, documentarian, filmmaker, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. This is going to be a load of fun, absolute load of fun. Gypsy says, "Yeah, you see, I noticed that too." I mean, I think someone pointed out earlier, teleprompter. Man, he didn't look the same yesterday. He looked tanned. He looked rested. He sounded vigorous. His voice was strong. You know, absolutely crazy. Don't necessarily disagree with this at all. TBS says maybe he was an actor in a Biden mask. Yeah, you know. You never quite know. Never quite know. Yeah, we shall see. All right. I got a couple or 3 minutes here. Eric should be strolling in here at some point. And like I say, I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with this young man. He is just a really, really load of fun. I guess the other stories are going to have to wait till Monday evening. So, but yeah, this is Front Porch Brunch. My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. We get together on Saturday mornings at 10:30 a.m., hang out together, talk about the news, cry, laugh, vent, what have you, drink a little drink. None of us smoke a little smoke. And otherwise have a whole lot of fun doing it. We are on Rumble. We are on Twitter. We are on YouTube. And actually, it's a double header. I forgot, I mentioned this much earlier, but I definitely ought to bring it up again. We also have another guest coming on later this afternoon after I have managed to wolf down some food and, do whatever. Darius Simpson's coming back on the electronic front porch. Very cool gentleman. Love having him here. And I've told him before and I'll say it again. He's welcome on the electronic front porch anytime he wants to come here. Now, wait a minute, WWG1. Real men don't cry, they rage. Oh, that's only in baseball. Oh, okay. All right. Well, fair enough. No, Clancy, I'm glad to see you here today, man. I know I got to catch up with you. I've got so many people I need to catch up with. It's ridiculous. No, I got to catch up with you and see how things are going down under. If you don't know, by the way, Daniel Clancy has his own social media page on YouTube. Do me a favor, if you're not subscribed to Daniel, do me a favor, drop a link to your YouTube channel in chat, and I'll pop it up there and let people see it. But yeah, subscribe to this young man. He's a very good commentator and a load of fun to listen to. Just absolutely, and just a hell of a nice guy. Which, by the way, he's not here today, but I'll definitely give him a shout out. Welsh Republic podcast. Subscribe to that cat. He's got guests on all the time and just divergent ideas and perspectives, and just he's a good interviewer and just a good dude. So by all means, Welsh Republic podcast, give him a shout out. Darius Simpson has a YouTube channel, which we'll bring him up later in the afternoon. But yeah, lots. That's one of the things I love about what I'm doing, and I'm doing a little over a year now. It's just amazing all the different content creators I'm meeting in all kinds of different spaces and places. Matter of fact, I had a conversation the other night with a fella, and I'm going to reach out to him and see when he wants to come on here. Good guy, just an absolute good guy. Just, he's got his own channels going right now, and just really, really solid person. Definitely worth bringing on the electronic front porch. Definitely so. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. By all means, subscribe to this young man's channel. Help out Mr. Clancy down there, down under. Down there and down under. That is a country I would love to visit sometime, is Australia. I really would. So yeah. Looking forward to all that. I'll tell you what, while we're waiting on Eric, I will get into a couple of things that happened on Friday. Big Supreme Court decisions. And very early on, I think it was TBA. Let me go back up to the top of my Rumble chat real fast. Was it Yep, it was TBA. I was right about this. Chevron. No, not the gas station. For a long time, everybody. Let me put it to you this way. Let me lay out a scenario for you and kind of give you an idea of the impact of what happened yesterday and why. Let's say you own a business or you're starting a business. Everything's rolling along real good. Things are going great. Well, lo and behold, here comes a visit from a federal regulator. Could be the EPA, could be whoever. And they say, well, you are not in compliance with regulation 3574-BC /25, which says you must do. Well, you look at this through a labyrinth of whatever, and you realize, what the crap? This isn't right. This doesn't even say that. You take them to court. And after paying out thousands of dollars in legal fees to lawyers trying to get this regulatory agency off your back, the judge renders a decision. Judge looks at you and says, well, I realize that the law says that it's this, but, I kind of have to defer to them because they are the people that administer this stuff. And, I don't really have any power here. So, I feel bad for you, buddy, but I got to rule against you. So you're out the money. You're out the time. You're out everything else. And worst of all, the administrative agency in question just pulled unto itself more power. Because basically what this gets down to is, if there is a question about any kind of ambiguity in a law that a certain regulatory agency of the federal government is supposed to oversee and administer, for the longest time, the courts have deferred to that administrative agency and said, well, you guys are the enforcement arm, so there you go. Not anymore. I take you to an article from Reuters. Headline, U.S. Supreme Court curbs agency powers, overturning a 1984 precedent. Article by John Krusell and Andrew Chung. We have the following. Dateline, Washington. The Supreme Court dealt a major blow to federal regulatory power on Friday by overturning a 1984 precedent that had given deference to government agencies in interpreting laws they administer, handing a defeat to Joe Biden's administration. The justices ruled 6-3 to set aside lower court decisions against fishing companies that challenged a government-run program partly funded by industry that monitored overfishing of herring in off New England's coast. It marked the latest decision in recent years, powered by the Supreme Court's conservative majority that hemmed in the authority of federal agencies. The precedent that the court overturned arose from a ruling involving oil company Chevron that had called for judges to defer to reasonable federal agency interpretations of U.S. laws deemed to be ambiguous. This doctrine, long opposed by conservatives and business interests, was called Chevron deference. Basically, like I said, The idea being that if there's any ambiguity in the rules or whatever, the courts have to defer to the agencies. Not anymore. The courts can say, no, we're going to decide what this means because that's the job of the judiciary. And consequently, this is going to take a serious bite out of the power of the administrative state, or we commonly call it these days the deep state. And with that, I see that my guest is in the background, so let me howdy. He's giving me the howdy symbol. So let me do a real quick intro and bring this gentleman in, because I've been looking forward to talk to this guy for quite a while. In an age when all of us are tearing our hair out because nothing makes any sense, there are two kinds of people that we refer to help us stay sane, keeping in mind who we are individually and what sanity is defined as. We turn to comedians and documentarians. Why? Because comedians perhaps are the unfiltered truth that we all need to hear, absent going to a house of worship, and documentarians bring truth to light that nobody's willing to talk about. My next guest is a glorious combination of both. Eric Abbenante has been around for quite a while on Twitter and various other places doing what he does best, being an intellectual provocateur. His posts on Twitter are extremely informative for everything he's bringing to everybody. And when he's not doing that, he is the proprietor of a website known as Immune to the System. And he's also probably one of the best documentarians you're ever going to meet. If you don't believe me and you haven't checked this out, you need to see one of his latest efforts called Voter Fraud, a film by Eric Abbenante. And who's this Lila Hart? What Lila Hart? Who's Lila Hart? Anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to probably one of the coolest cats coming or going around these days, Mr. Eric Abbenante.
Oh, Eric, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I mean, I just got to say, that was good. That was well said. That gave me a pep in my step. I am excited. Thank you, sir. Very much appreciated.
Welcome to the electronic front porch, such as it is. As I often tell my guests, we are running a tin can and string operation here that is powered by cheap surplus Ukrainian equipment. So I can't do a whole lot for you beyond giving you what I hope is a really good intro, and that sets you up to do your thing. So Eric, thank you so much for coming on. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here. And how goes things in Dallas, my man?
I aside from it being scorching hot, and my studio is in the garage, so if you see me wilting halfway through this, I'm doing my best. But it's great. I love we're comedians who me and my wife Lila Hart. You can find all our films at lilahart.com or immunetothesystem.com, like the lovely gentleman said. And should I call you Front Porch?
Well, I go by, as I jokingly say, I go by many different names. You can call me Brian. You can call me Porch. Christy Mayer occasionally refers to me as Porchy. Although I don't know if you want to do that because you're going to make Lila jealous. I mean, however you want to handle this, man, it's entirely up to you.
Sir Porch, I think is probably. No, yeah. It's good to know. Good to meet you, Brian. I really appreciate it. Yeah, you can find all of our films at these places. But yeah, we cover these topics because, starting out in LA, we experienced what censorship is. And we even saw that people would say that conservatives are not funny. And because there's not a lot of successful conservative comedians. And so this censorship kind of drove us towards this side, because in reality, a lot of it is just them not describing things fully in an environment where they are exhibiting censorship. Joan Rivers is a great conservative comedian.
And you guys did a documentary on her. Am I not remembering that correctly?
Yeah, we did like a documentary short, like 30 minutes of it. And we're still working on the final project, but it's 2024. We have made some big strides this year, not even stuff that we can fully talk about, but we have made some big moves this year, and I'm very happy with the progress. So, it's for the people who watched the films, we made American History of Voter Fraud, and then World Death Organization on eugenics, and then the trial of Anthony Fauci. I mean, you guys have changed our lives sincerely with these films, supporting these films. and supporting my little stupid posts on X, because it's really, they've turned from little clips into something a lot bigger for me in my life, that's actually even helped pay the mortgage. So I appreciate you guys and all the support.
Well, you call it, and I know you're being modest, calling them, little stupid posts on Twitter, but I'm telling you, dude, and I mean this in all sincerity, I'm not trying to suck up here. You are one of those sources of information that I go to. If you got something posted, I want to pay attention to it, because, like, I'm one of these old farts that's come to social media, not at the end of my life, but as I jokingly tell people, I'm old enough not to be young and young enough not to be old. I'm in that great middle. But doing what I do on social media, I've only really been doing this in earnest for like a little over a year. So when I find sources of information that either A, are bringing me stuff that I haven't heard, or B, different perspective, or C, truth that no one's talking about, I'm like, I want to like grab this, grab that, pull that down, and I'll go anywhere I can find it to get it. So when you put something out there, I'm like, ooh, got to go listen to this. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you here talking to you, because the documentaries, I was watching voter fraud this morning in preparation for getting ready for this interview, and I tell you what, and again, I'm not trying to suck up here, I'm just being totally honest, the quality of work that you and Lila put into this, the stuff you're bringing out, the clips from past years, I mean, just the production quality, it's really good. So folks, if you're not, I'll go ahead right now and drop the link in both Rumble and YouTube. Go to this website, check this out. All the documentaries are there, and this is just tremendous work, and I mean it in all sincerity. First question, how long have I got you for? Because, I mean, you're in blazing heat in Texas, and good God, I don't want you to pass out on me. So how long have I got you for?
Oh, don't worry. I'm ready and I'm game. So don't worry.
All right.
We'll keep this going.
Okay.
I'll give you at least a full hour.
All right, fair enough. Let's start with background, because I mean, I see you posting stuff on Twitter. I've seen the documentaries. I've seen some old YouTube stand-up you've done, which is great. For folks who don't really know you, and your background, tell us about you. Where'd you grow up? What was your childhood like? Parents, college, all that good stuff. Give us the overview.
Yeah. I was born in Santa Monica, California. For those who want like the beginning, and then my parents moved to Utah when I was very young, and so I grew up in Utah. And part of it was growing up being like one of the only Jews in Utah, and so it's a very interesting experience to kind of because oftentimes people would go to me and ask me a lot of questions, and by people I mean Christians, and mostly, and it started off Utah was like vast majority Mormon, and then it slowly became vast majority Christian, where there was a significant increase in Catholics coming in and others. And so it was just my experience often was being like the only Jew in the room for Christians. And so and even growing up in a mixed religion household, my dad's Catholic, my mom's Jewish. And so I'm Jewish even if I don't want to be, because, it's a matrilineal religion. And so genetically, I am Jewish no matter what. If your mom's Jewish, you're Jewish. And it's just so it's just part of my identity. I also, of course, identify with my dad's Catholic side, because as my Jewish grandma would say, we didn't get saved by Jews during the Holocaust. Christians saved us. So, we should respect them, because in the end, without Christians, Jews wouldn't really exist in a modern situation, because in the end, Jews should have some deference and respect for the one Christian nation. I mean, we don't really like to talk about it too much, but in the end, it has been a predominantly Christian nation and a Christian culture in America. And those people saved us during the Holocaust. It wasn't other Jews. I mean, yes, there were Jews involved, but it was mostly Christians. And so my grandma made a great point of like, no, you can't be like the Hasids and the Orthodox and the Orthodox who might actually look down upon Christians. It's like, no, you actually have to have deference and respect. And so I just had a different viewpoint overall growing up predominantly in a Christian area as a Jew. So I'm not like a lot of my even Jewish relatives who grew up in a more Jewish area, in a more affluent area. Growing up in Utah gave me a much different perspective on politics, and I really enjoyed doing that. I actually got into stand-up expressly as a political comedian. And in 2015, that was not cool. Like no one was really doing politics. You were considered a nerd, and it was considered very niche. And then once Trump got into the scene, everyone started talking about politics, even if they didn't know there were 3 branches of government. These people were trying to make jokes about politics in their act. And it became quite annoying to the people who actually knew politics and had been doing this for a while. And so I guess I'll give you a little, background that I've never really told people before, since you've been so awesome. I basically, the way I structure these, the way I structure my Twitter and the way I've been kind of doing my research is, I knew that the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, the people who made that show were really the researchers who clipped out the stuff and presented that information to Jon Stewart, and they based the writing off of those clips, right? And those really dictate how the show goes. And so I've been very diligent about understanding, as a political comedian, if I want to have a show that's like a Bill Maher or a Jon Stewart, but on the right, then I would need to understand how to do research, make my own clips, and be able to do commentary on those things. So that's kind of why I do what I do. Because in the end, even as I am hopefully ascending as a comedian, I will still be clipping out these news things because it's part of what I will be making fun of in my act. And so I'm always in the world of paying attention to politics. And so through making clips out of news stuff and just kind of always being in that, in that mind frame. And in comedy, I had always been making content as well with the camera. I was the comedian who filmed things before, that was like really considered cool. Now all the comedians understand you have to film everything. But I had filmed 3 comedy specials before I was 30 years old because I understand that making and creating things was so important. So we started off doing political comedy. And then because I started off doing political comedy. I met my wife, Lila Hart. She was just more of a standard comedian, but she did broach on a lot of very interesting subjects. And that was part of why I fell in love with her. But she, so we met, and we had done stand up in LA for a while. We were really enjoying it. And then the pandemic hit, and we weren't allowed into the buildings because we weren't vaccinated. And that really changed the trajectory of our lives, because that's when we started making the films as kind of a signal. Hey, the First Amendment is the most important thing in stand-up comedy. And once you start eroding the First Amendment and saying, oh, you can't say this and you can't say that, then really that's going to be the death of stand-up comedy as we know it. And so that is a big reason why we made American History of Voter Fraud at first, because that's the biggest taboo we could think of. Even more so, there's been more films on pedophilia, serial killers, the most extreme taboos you can think of, bestiality. There's been more stuff on that than rigging elections. It is the most taboo subject. Even vaccines, which we did a film on, Fauci and all that stuff, right? We've talked about that stuff, but the most taboo subject is rigged elections. They don't want to talk about, and that's when we realized, oh, this has never been made. No one's ever done a full history of all the rigged elections in the United States, because this is the information they don't want you to have. So it was kind of a big middle finger to the system as comedians, like, oh, you're going to prevent us from saying stuff? Check this out.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I mean, like I said, I was listening to the documentary getting ready for this morning, and the stuff you guys were bringing out, I mean, past histories, etc., it was just extraordinary, because it's like, I mean, I'm from West. I mean, for my part, I'm from West Virginia, and trust me, when it comes to rigging an election, okay, we have something of a working knowledge of how to do that sort of thing, if I put it that way. I mean, I was thinking about this morning. We had a governor, immediate predecessor to the current one we have now, whose name was Earl Ray Tomlin. Now, if that name sounds like Southern good old boy, he ain't too far from the truth where Earl Ray was concerned. But his family lineage, to tie it back to the subject of voter fraud, his father was Ray Tomlin, who was part of the legendary Logan Five in my state. These guys were caught literally dumping ballots in a river in Logan County out the back of a trunk of a car because they wanted to frame an election just the way that the Democrat party structure in Logan County wanted. Literally, the state trooper comes upon this guy. He's taking boxes out of the trunk of the car and dumping them into the river. And, they wound up convicting the governor's father of it. And now, as the years have gone by, that kind of stuff's, lessened in my home state. But I mean, West Virginia's legendary for the 1960 election with Kennedy, for the stuff that we did in the primary and the general election. So, when I was watching voter fraud, your documentary, I was like, oh, this takes me back a little bit in my state's history. So,
and it is funny. We cover 1960, and when we cover it, the two states that really flip it are Texas and Illinois. But we didn't have time to get into the whole background of the West Virginia rigging, which is very interesting because members of the mafia are involved, and it's a wild story. It was in the primary, and so there were like bigger fish to fry, but it's a fascinating story, and it's absolutely documented. It didn't make the final cut, but no, that's one of the ones I bring up, and we even have it in the comments on the YouTube of like, what's one of the things that didn't make the film that's awesome? And it's the West Virginia Democrat primary in 1960, because it is a tales all the time how corrupt it was.
Oh yeah, I mean, and like I say, and as somebody who appreciates history, those clips of NBC News on election night in 1960, I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, that's David Brinkley, that's Chet Huntley." Oh, and I mean, I'm just sitting there going like, "Oh my God, this was just for me was just so cool to watch." So,
and really quick, so why that footage is important. So on election night, 1960, and they go through the night. So they just didn't stop the broadcast, and so that you could see them getting progressively tired and frustrated and angry as it's like 8 and 9 a.m. of the next morning. And eventually they call the election, and they say, and California goes to Kennedy. And that's how they call the election. When in the end, California eventually went to Nixon. Now, it's not like that was the consequential thing, but just think about how we talk about Dewey Truman and how much of a gaffe that was. Yet they called the election broadcast in 1960 on the wrong state. And then they're like, and then they ended the broadcast because they were just tired. They're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Cool. California went to JFK. We're going to bed. It was hilarious. And again, there were multiple things that were called that night that eventually were changed, including Hawaii. And that takes us to January 6th, 1961, if you want to talk about that.
Oh, yeah. All right. Go for it, dude. You got the floor.
Well, I'm just saying, like, the comparisons between 1960 and 2020, what people don't understand is on January 6th, 1961, they present the evidence that there were tabulation errors or fraud, depending on how you talk to, in the state of Hawaii. And Nixon, who was the vice president at the time, so he was playing the role of Mike Pence on January 6th, 2021. He actually accepted the alternate slate of electors from his opponent. And just because the evidence was valid, and that is because of the Electoral Count Act of 1887, it is a custom since then that we present the evidence on the January 6th of the year following the election. And to say that in the media there are fake electors, that is a narrative that was never tried to be propped upon JFK. Those were not fake electors. They were alternates, and they are either accepted or rejected based on the evidence. It is not a coup.
No, No, it's not. I mean, and that's just it. It's like that was the whole. I mean, and it had been so long since the American people had seen something that was going to play out on January 6, 2020. They had no idea the processes involved. It's like dusting off an old suit of clothes and you put it on and realize this is something people haven't seen in a long time. So I don't know how this is going to be received. I mean, but everything from the alternate electors to the presentation, and that's the part that cracks me up about January 6, 2020, laying aside everything else that happened. All that was going to be done was that when the joint session of Congress convened, they were going to basically say, we have problems with some of these, here's evidence. We're going to refer this back to the state for 10 days. Figure this out because you've got a problem here. And it would have rolled it back and said, either we're not going to accept these electors, we can't accept these electors, we can't sort it out. And then in the end, this thing would have straightened itself out constitutionally. But everything got blown up with everything that happened outside the Capitol building. You know, it was tragic. It really was on so many levels.
Yes. Like they really how January 6, 2021 was supposed to play out, sans instigators, was that in the 6 battleground states, they present the evidence of potential fraud. And it would have gone on for hours that day, like over 12 hours it would have taken to present all the evidence in all that states and, you know, the back and forth. It would have been a long, boring process day of just going through everything, either accepted or rejected. And honestly, it would have been a lot better for the country because it does get resolved within that day. It's actually designed like, we got to finish it within this session. And it would have been, even if it was rejected, even if all the evidence was presented, but all of them were rejected, it would have been a completely different tone the next 4 years, as opposed to what we've been through and how people were gaslit into thinking that they were insurrectionists participating in a coup. That is where all the animosity and all the division has come from, where they lie to you about basic history. I mean, even in 2000, the Democrats were discussing January 6, 2001, should we present an alternate slate of electors? And eventually they decided, no, we don't have the support within the party. Let's just lie down here. Because in the end, this is conjecture. This is my opinion. This is not fact. If they had gone through the evidence, 2001, they could have gone back to them and said, hey, there was an equal amount of funny business on your side. And, let's go through some discovery on this. And actually, you're going to look worse. And so because in the end, both sides in the 2000s, they went after each other's absentee ballots because they knew that's where the funny business is going to occur. And back then it was more absentees than mail-ins and earlies like it is now. Yeah. But it's still, they know those are the 3 vote categories where there is more time and access for an election official to tamper with your vote. And so that's where they even knew, like, hey, we know where they're cheating, because that's where we cheat. It's just like a tale as old as time. So I think that's just the biggest issue. People don't understand that this is more akin to NASCAR than a fair race.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. But I want to touch on something that you mentioned a few minutes ago, and that is the state of comedy from the outside looking in. I mean, I'm a normie. I go to a comedy show. I want to be entertained. I want to have fun. I want someone to make me laugh. But every time, and I guess this maybe is where I followed, Chrissy and Lila and Gino and you and everybody else, is there is almost like its own form of a civil war inside the comedy community these days. And the thing is, it's not you guys didn't start this. You guys just did what stand-up comedians have been doing for years. You're like, I see something, I want to talk about it. The problem is what you see and you talk about, your brethren in the comedy community are like, oh, I don't like that. I mean, just the bickering back, which, I mean, there's always a certain amount of, I don't like what you do, regardless of whatever profession you're talking about. But man, you guys just like make a joke about whatever subject it is, and your comedy brethren are just breathing down your neck, calling you racist, bigoted, homophobe. I mean, name the word. I mean, what is that like for y'all to deal with? I mean, because don't get, I mean, I know you guys have got thick skin. You're stand-up comedians. That's automatic with the job. But still, it's like, there's got to be moments you guys sit there and go, I told a joke. You don't have to find it funny, but you're trying to crucify me or my wife or anybody else over this? What's the matter with you guys? I mean, you guys ever have those discussions?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a very good question, and it actually opens up a very large can of worms for me here.
Go for it.
Because in the end, what a lot of what you're discussing is, in the end, comedians view the world as a zero-sum game. They don't believe that the pie can just get larger and everyone can succeed. They assume that if someone gets success, that detracts from your success. And the most insecure, competitive people you meet are comedians, because there's other competitive people, right? But they work on their craft a little more. Like, the most cutthroat people you know are comedians. They, at this, especially modern comedians, you know, back in to explain it from an economical perspective.
Okay.
Back, even if you don't adjust for inflation, Dick Gregory in 1960 would make more for his talk show appearances on the Jack Parr show than comedians do now. And I'm not talking by a factor of 5 or 10. I'm talking by a factor of 100 to 1,000.
Really?
When he became a regular on the Jack Parr show, he talked about how he would make $5,000 plus per an appearance, right? And then, I mean, if you adjust that for inflation, that's insane. Okay.
Oh, I'll bet.
So, these comedians had access to a lot more money-making opportunities between an open mic and a headliner. Now we've gotten to the point where if you're not a national touring headliner, you might as well be an open micer, because there aren't nearly as many economic opportunities for those in the middle. And so it creates an environment where comedians are even more cutthroat and even more want to accelerate the demise of their peers by participating in cancel culture. And this is why a lot of them have their hands tied behind their back and really can't say anything, because once they get an agent or a manager, they are told, if you talk about this or this, then you will get canceled. And that's why a lot of them, in the end, all they go up there and say is white Christian males are evil, because that's what's left. That's the thing they're allowed to say on stage. Everything else, they're afraid to say. So in the end, the cancel culture is also overtly political, because it directly guides you to one side. You have to be towards the left or you have no career. What do you want to be? And so this is the issue, is that if you are a comedian who is like, you don't even put me in here, take me out of it. Tyler Fisher, who has a much bigger platform than me and has an agent and a manager and has been touring regularly. He's been telling people, he's been being told regularly that you're a white male, that's why you can't be hired for this. And so it's just a pervasive thing over and over that, you know, it used to be a lot different. If you were a Norm Macdonald or a Patrice O'Neill, you could sacrifice opportunities by telling the truth, but there were still lanes for you to succeed and you know, be able to feed your family. Would you be as rich as the, you know, Chris Rocks of the world? No. The Jon Stewarts? No. But you would be fine. You wouldn't be out on the streets, and you wouldn't be so desperate that you were beholden to the corporate overlords. But now it is at the point where comedians either choose to sell their soul to the big pharma, you know, Hollywood overlords, you know, this deep secret society that we all assume controls things. Whatever you think of that is, and whatever your imagination, your Rorschach test of that world is, it really is true. There is a bias. So now we are to the point where, you know, people like Chrissy Mayer or Tyler Fisher, they have to go independent. They have to find a way to build their own platform because they know that the standard methods of upward mobility that used to exist in comedy no longer exist. And the way that the gatekeepers would promote people and scout talent and then eventually put them on a Carson or even a Letterman afterward, and we're able to build them up, those venues do not really exist anymore. So we're in a very dangerous time in comedy where the voices have never been more controlled. And that is why you as a comedy fan feel like you are not being fulfilled by the comedians you're watching.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely agree. I mean, you mentioned Johnny Carson. It is nothing for me to, like, you know, not constantly, but, you know, come up in my feed, my YouTube feed or whatever. Hey, here's a clip from Carson where he had Robin Williams on or whomever. I don't know that Johnny Carson gets hired in this environment to host the Tonight Show or anybody like Carson, because Carson was an equal opportunity offender. He was yes, he hosted a show every night for 30 years. But when it came to taking shots at everybody, it didn't matter, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, whatever. He just took his shot and he had fun with it. The audience laughed and everybody went on down the road. But I mean, the other thing, going back to something that you said, which is it's true of so many people now, the fact that comedians are having to go an independent route, and, you know, the avenues for them to succeed in their chosen profession, you know, I mean, you know this, it's not just confined to comedy, obviously. People who are making independent content, you know, in what the political science sphere, kind of like what I do covering politics or whatever. It's just we are so sensorial. We cannot be honest and transparent enough to have a conversation about, okay, here comes the emperor down the street. Wait a minute. Why is this man not wearing a stitch of clothing? No. He's got a suit of clothing on. Look at that. It's a beautiful lining. I mean, the tailoring. No, he's naked as a jaybird. You cannot say the emperor has no clothes anymore, regardless of whether it's comedy or political content or anything else, or medicine, going back to your documentaries about Dr. Fauci. Let me you mentioned when you first started in comedy, and I always find it, these are things I always find interesting, and I always like to find out why. What got you personally into comedy? I mean, because what's that moment that you had where you're like, hey, they laughed at my joke. I like doing this. This is fun. Was it that for you, or was it something else that got you into comedy?
The common denominator that ties all comedians together is that comedians throughout their life overcame adversity through humor. And that, as a comedy historian, I am, it's funny because I hear that question asked over and over, and people incorrectly answer it all the time. There is no doubt. I've studied all the greats. There isn't a single great comedian or even shitty comedian who, as soon as if you hear their life story, what is it about? Throughout their life, every little piece of adversity to big pieces of adversity, they got through it through humor. And that's just that's Lila's life. That's my life. In the end, that is how I use my talents best, is through humor. And so stand-up comedy was the natural route. Now, sure. I also, I looked at my peers like Woody Allen and Mel Brooks, and the fact that they made films and did stand-up comedy was also very attractive to me. So I was, also focused in that route. But in the end, all comedians have that one common denominator, and it ties us all together. And that's why we have a different language together. It's the same I mean, it's a similar bond. It's not nearly as important, mind you, but it's a similar bond to where military people, when they talk to each other, they have a bond, and it's for a reason, because that's how they overcame adversity. Obviously, much more serious, but in the end, that's why people, like, you get a group of Marines together and they talk a certain way, and you don't understand it really unless you are in that world. And comedians are kind of the same way. We both talk like sailors. It's kind of a funny thing about it, is like, you get around, like, oh my God, that's how they talk. Yes, we do, because we are unfiltered. And unfortunately, that is going away too, because comedians used to be able to talk to each other behind the scenes and not feel any pressure, and there's a lack of trust now too. And so it is tough. And you're right, the censoring that we are all experiencing is driving us to self-censorship, and that's also why comedy is struggling.
Well, let me ask you in that vein, keeping it in the realm of comedy, because I mean, this unofficial civil war, as I liken it to, has sort of been going on, at least in my mind, for the past 15, 20 years.
It's not a bad analogy. It's basically what you're saying is there's a civil war between the haves and the have-nots, the people who say things and don't say things in reality. And though it is kind of it is funny that even the non-comedians are noticing this.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's true, because I mean, like, I'll give you an example. About 2 years ago, I had the opportunity, and I took it to go down to Orlando for a couple of different reasons. But one of them is, there was Chrissy was hosting a thing down there at the Improv Club. Lila was part of it, and I thought to myself, boy, that much comedic talent in one night, if you don't get your butt down to Orlando and watch us, you're going to kick your rear end for the rest of your life. So me's go buy a ticket, me get me a hotel room, and me go down to Orlando. Had a blast at the Improv Club. And each one of the comedians, even though they may have been up there for like 10, 15 minutes or whatever, and Gino closed out the show, I'm sitting here in the back, and I was sitting back there I had the opportunity and the privilege to sit with Kerry Smith and Mike Harlow and a couple other people. And I'm sitting there in the back, and I'm watching, Lila and everybody up on stage. And I'm sitting here going, how the hell are these people not more better known nationally than what they are? Why do they not have gigs on Comedy Central or Netflix or something? Because they're so daggone stinking funny. Now, and it blew up. And I'm sitting there going over, and I am not saying this to suck up to you. I'm really not. I know this is the first time we're talking to each other. But, Lila is extraordinarily talented, along with everybody else on that stage. And I'm just a normie, going to a comedy club to get some laughs. And I was sitting there going, why in God's name are these people? And it hits me. It's like, because of the Civil War. The people that they have don't want to let the Lilas or the everybody. And I'm not just saying this as like, oh, I'm down with the struggle kind of a comment. It's true. They don't want Lila or Chrissy or Gino or Anthony or anybody else to have that opportunity, because it's like, we can't let these guys that we don't agree with have a shot. And it just makes me sad for you guys.
The toughest part about stand-up is it's about access to stages in the end. And so until you can build your own platform and justify being on that stage by saying, I can put asses in seats and I can fill out the room to perform in front of that stage, it is tough. And traditionally in stand-up, there was a path of upward mobility and a meritocracy of talent, where if you showed that you were able to perform well in front of certain rooms, they would give you access to higher rooms. Now it has gotten inverted to the point where they only want the people to fill the rooms, to access the rooms. They don't care about the talent part.
Yeah.
And so that is where a lot of audiences just feel completely unsatisfied, feeling they are not satiated by what they had just seen, because it was okay. Whereas people like Lila and Chrissy really give you that old school comedy feeling of, oh, I've seen something new, original, groundbreaking. And this is why I watch new comedians, because they're going to give me something new. It's always great that you can watch Richard Pryor and George Carlin, but you have to wonder, what would they say about these times? And that's where the new comedians come in, and they have the torch passed to them. And it's unfortunate that there are great new comedians all over this country. And trust me, when I started, I had the same feeling of I knew 100 people who should be on TV and be better than everyone on TV. And yet they are, being relegated. I'll give you one. I posted, besides me and Lila, I posted him once on my page. His name's Ty Rivera. He is a gay comedian who has a conservative viewpoint, and my audience loves him every time I post him. He is just a fascinating, fresh perspective. And when I started out, he gave me very good advice in the beginning, and was just a mensch. And he did a roast during the 2016 election, Trump versus Hillary. And he came on as the conservative guy, and in more of a leftist format, and crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. You guys have to watch it. I'd post it myself, but it's his moment. But it's just, oh my God, it was so good. So people need to, trust me, there are so many people of my generation, or like the generation before me, who like really have not got the spotlight yet, and absolutely deserve it more than the people who adhere to the LGBTQ BLM blah 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 movement.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned a couple of my favorites. I mean, I love George Carlin, and people think of Carlin in the latter part of his career, where he was. Some people would call him the angry, ranting old man. No. The reason that I appreciate Carlin so much is his love of the English language. That man could take a phrase or a word and make a comedy bit out of it. I mean, the best example of that for me, and you've probably seen this, the stuff routine. I got to pack up stuff. No, shit, now I got to get more stuff. Pryor's the same way. Pryor could take one little incident he finds in life, or even talking about his own life, and just make comedy gold out of it. And they went on because of what they could do. Like you said, filling seats. Movie producers, movie directors, like, I got to have that guy in my movie. I got to have this guy co-write a script with me, which most people don't even know. Blazing Saddles is one of the greatest comedy movies in history. Richard Pryor co-wrote that with Mel Brooks, and that's the only credit he got for it. But go ahead. You look like you want to.
One thing that is interesting though about that time period, that time period, there were more paid opportunities for those that weren't a headliner yet. Like working up to that, there were more paid opportunities than there are now. I mean, even my grandpa, who was just he was a trombone player. He used to get $50 a show after his banking. He was like this old stodgy Michigan banker, and then he'd go out and play the saxophone. And so it's like, but you get $50 a show. $50 a show now would be considered good, and that's sad, because like right now you're getting a drink ticket, maybe. You're not even getting gas half the time. And so, and I'm not saying, these are the opportunities that were given to people who couldn't put asses in seats. And that's the thing. There used to be a lot of paid opportunities for those who were working up to being able to fill a room. Now it is so inverted, and it's very tough. And that's more of why we're more focused on, building our platform, and, Lila got a great gig even this weekend that I had to take her to the airport for. So sometimes you get a little victory even when you're, telling the truth.
Well, and that's something. I mean, and I remember that you had mentioned that, hey, I might not be there at 11:30. I got to take Lila to the airport, which I was like, cool, fine. I'm perfectly fine with that, because, I know you don't know me real well yet, but trust me, I can talk someone's leg off and have on occasion. I can vamp, okay, as the kids say these days. But yeah, I mean, going back to something else, talking about the economic opportunities. I watch, because I had a conversation one time, and I had her on the channel, Keanu Thompson, the mutual friend to you and Lila.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I said, how important is social media to comedians in your generation? She said, it's huge. She said, because, I find out about gigs. I promote my work. I let people see some of what I do, be it on Instagram or on Twitter or whatever. And you guys are building your same platforms. You mentioned it, a little while ago in the conversation. When did you make the decision that's like, okay, I'm doing stand-up comedy. I love doing editing. I love doing all the things that I do. What got your gears going when it came to like, I want to do a documentary? What was it that made you say, I want to get into this. I want to see what I can do with it?
The main thing was, we were happy doing stand up. I was producing Lila's live talk show, Small Talk with Lila Hart. And it was a real pleasure. We were just focused on that. And then we were taken away from the stage. We were told you can't enter buildings because you're unvaccinated. That is what prompted us, because we had the time and we were just, we were researching, and that was that in the end it was our middle finger. Okay, if you're gonna prevent us from being on stage, then we're gonna release something that you don't want us to release. And so in the end, I've always been a student of history. I have always used that in my act as well. And so I was able to take my knowledge that I had been using to the stage and crystallize it in a film. And in the end, like I said, I had been filming comedy specials. I'm, directing and editing Lila's talk show. I was always in that world, but yeah, this was my magnum opus of, okay, this is what you get for shutting me up. Don't ever shut me up again.
Mm-hmm. And believe me, brother, like I say, the most is American Voter Fraud the most recent documentary that you guys have put out together?
Oh, it was our debut. It was our debut film. So
okay,
we had never made a film before. American History of Voter Fraud, total cult classic. That it was a small but very strong contingent that grew and grew and grew and kept getting us more and more opportunities. And now Lila sells American History of Voter Fraud merch after shows. And
I've seen it. It's very good looking stuff. I love watching Lila work an after show, because she is your wife, and I gush, and I know you gush as much as I do. Your wife is a doll. She really is. It is so much fun to watch her work an after room. It really is, because she's just a joy to be around, number one. But man, she is absolutely working it and crushing it every time.
She's an old school performer. Dick Gregory once said that, when someone pays that $3.50 for the ticket, you are their servant. You are there to serve and please them for that show. And Lila is really from that school of just, saying, I'm here to really honor the people who are giving me this opportunity to perform in front of you. And she really takes that seriously, even to the point of the after show. And it is much more of an earnest old school approach. Whereas in new school, they want to say like, they're the stars. You're lucky to see me. I'm the present. No, she understands that without the people watching her, it's just a figment of her imagination. This is a beautiful thing. And she understands, like, even Dick Gregory talks about it in that speech of like, you don't know how long someone drove to come see you, what they had to go through, what they had to set aside. And it is truly an honor. And, even, it's, I always tell this story about Dick Gregory. He, he's performing in front of an all Jewish room, and he kept throwing his best stuff at them, and they were just looking at him stone faced. And it wasn't that they were disagreeing or hating. It was that they had already lived the exact same experience that Dick Gregory was living, but just in a different format. And so he's saying that they were relating so much to it, and he'd understand it, but he kept going. He was so earnest, and he never stopped, and he stayed as strong in his convictions as when he started. And at the end, after they didn't react the whole time, he got a thunderous standing ovation. And it's just the understanding of, continually serve the audience, and never stop, and eventually you will get to that point of where they are giving you a standing O and they are cheering for you. And so it's it's one of those things. Lila, I know, is a sleeping giant, and at some point, like a life jacket that's being held 100 feet under sea level, it's gonna pop up and it's gonna shoot up like a rocket.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited for her, and what she's been doing. She has been working so hard and honestly held back so much by the past 4 years in this political BS. And honestly, even before 2020, I had got to see what online censorship was from her account. It happened even before 2020, and I gotta really have my eyes open, because I was still very skeptical of, like, that's what losers say. You're just complaining. Oh, you're being shadow banned. And little I know, they were actually implementing those things, and it was a new thing that they had developed. And you can see it when it happens. And when I first saw it happen to my wife's account, I was like, oh wow, I honestly, I started off from a more liberal perspective, and the more that I saw that the left continued to put a thumb on the scale and made everything more unfair for the other side, it made me gravitate towards the other side, because it was just like, one, that is not what I thought this was. That is not what the old school definition of liberalism was. The main thing was that the liberals used to be, in pretend, the party of free speech. That was what they had masqueraded and postured themselves as. And there came a point where you realized, oh, that is completely fabricated. It's actually quite the opposite. And that is when I said, never again, goodbye forever. And as a comedian, all we have is our free speech. And that's why I don't understand the comedians who are not patriotic. This is an American art form. It is a purely American art form, because you have to be able to say whatever you want without repercussions, without fearing the state. And also, there were Americans that actually, like Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, Dick Gregory, Woody Allen even, who was put on a government watch list for talking about how the Warren Report was fiction. Okay, it's comedians like those that fought for your right to be able to say whatever you want, and to throw it all away is embarrassing. To just be like, okay, I'm going to take the money and I'm not going to say what I want. I'm going to throw away this ultimate right that was given to us by great Americans. You're disgusting. And a comedian has to be patriotic. There is no other choice, because if not, you are rejecting why the art form exists. America. That's why it exists. And the fact that people don't understand that, it shows their lack of history, and it shows why they really don't deserve to be on that stage and to have that glorious opportunity that people died for.
Yeah, literally. I mean, literally. And I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, but you're absolutely right. I mean, stand-up comedy is totally an American thing, not just the fact in the art, the form of the art itself, but what undergirds it and makes it even possible is a distinctly American idea. I can get up on a stage in front of a microphone, and I could flop, I could get applause, but by golly, by George, I'm going to say whatever I want. And why can I do that? Because I'm an American. Why can I do that? Because this is an American art form. And that's a great perspective. I mean, I had never really considered it from that angle, but you're absolutely right.
And you're right. You're right. Also, the audience is like capitalism, because you put that idea out there into the market of ideas, and it's either incredibly successful or it is not. And the reason why comedy now is struggling is because the audience has moved into more this socialist collectivist idea of, oh, let's give you pity laughs, and oh, the black person and the queer the intersectional person is on stage, they've checked all these boxes, we are so happy that they're there. That's why people truly respect Lila, because it's not about her disability necessarily. She's elite in her category with her disability, and in the end, there really, if she was doing a sport, there would be a caveat. If she was great, but anything else is a caveat. In stand-up, she is elite, period. And that's also part of what's magical about it, is it's like that truly, it is as pure capitalism. You are allowed to just present yourself into the world and see if it is successful or not. And that's part of what has been taken away, is they don't want people to be put out there in the marketplace of ideas, because they don't want to see that, oh, there's some conservative people, or just people who have a divergent opinion, who actually might be more successful than the people that you're propping up on stage right now. And that is where we are, to tie it really back to your original question about all this, is like, this is why, as a stand-up comedy fan, you're like, why are Lila and Chrissy not bigger than these hacks that I'm seeing on TV right now?
Yeah. And if you're just joining us, my name is Brian Tripp, and I'm the Front Porch Conservative. I am joined by comedian and documentarian Eric Abbenante. We're having a discussion about any number of different subjects. So if check out his work, I've got a feed going across the bottom of the screen where his Twitter page can be found. Highly informative. Got two different websites where the documentaries are and information he's constantly putting out. We're sitting around on the electronic front porch having one hell of a good conversation. Let me tie it into a couple of different things. You've been talking about, and Lila talks about, and everybody does, that you guys are constantly hustling. I mean, you drove her to the airport today to do a gig somewhere in America that, just kind of came up at the last minute. And you guys are building your own platforms, and you're letting people find your work and letting the marketplace of ideas determine whether you rise and fall. You had mentioned a moment ago that the level of upward opportunities for comedians is not the same now as it was, back in the day. How frustrating or how rewarding is it for you and Lila and others in the entrepreneurial spirit in which you find yourselves? Yeah, you're hustling, you're scrambling, you're building, but there's got to be moments you look at it and go, damn, this feels good. Or moments you go, oh, God, can I catch a break? I mean, what's that like for you guys? Because in the end, it rises and falls on you guys now more than it did, say, 25, 30 years ago for other comedians who came before you guys.
Yeah, and it balances out. So in the end, the counter to the stuff I'm saying is, in the end, back in the day, the comedians from the Catskills era, they had to learn how to sing and dance and do stand up. So there's always been this thing of, you can't just do stand up. You have to learn all these other things. And so whether it was singing and dancing, or now it's, learning how to edit and be your own publicist, there's always going to be some of that element. But in the end, it is undoubtable that there are just less economic opportunities in the middle. And I remember listening to Ralphie May, great comedian.
Yeah.
And this is before he was like really big. And he was talking about, kicking his manager off because he himself was generating comedy stand-up gigs that were like $100,000 a week and plus to 150,000. And he was like, you, the manager, aren't really contributing anything to this. Why do I need you? He got rid of him. But it gave me a great glimpse of like, oh, there is actual real money that can be made in stand-up if you can get to the national touring headlining area.
Sure.
A great example, Sebastian Maniscalco, the year that he became a national touring headliner, broke, dude got 18 million in a year, just from pure stand-up gigs. And by the way, I am so happy for him, and I hope he gets 18 million more. But it shows you that, there used to be, in the Ralphie May era, even, there were like a lot more economic opportunities for the road dogs, for the people who were touring in the, not as glamorous areas of just the, the more, not the major cities, but like the middling cities and that kind of thing. You could make serious money. And now it's just, everything is dwindling, especially with inflation, all this other stuff. it has just become a tough time. And so in the end, it really is great to be independent and build your own platform and not to be beholden to gatekeepers. It's just a tough time for those who are trying to go the old school route of being beholden to these people, because even if you get selected, the claw machine pulls you out. I have been chosen. Well, you've been chosen to say nothing. And in that point, your career is actually going to suffer because they're like, oh man, he got big and now he doesn't say anything. He pulls all his punches. I remember when he was funny. And so you never want to be that as well. And so I'm very proud of where we're at because we've navigated this time period, and we could have totally lost our sanity, lost a lot of things, but we actually have come out much stronger together, and we know nothing can stop us. And so it's good, but also I am recognizing, there were other easier time periods to be a stand-up comedian and to make the path from open micer all the way up to national touring headliner. Now, in the end, it's not a bad time to be a national touring headliner at all. Once you're at the top, it's not a bad time at all. It's, getting to that point there are a lot of new challenges to it, but a lot of new opportunities. And so we're in, it is fun to talk about both because most people don't understand comedy history and how things have changed and adjusted over the years as well. So I appreciate the conversation on it.
No. I mean, I tell people all the time, you come on the electronic front porch, and I'm going to toot my own horn here. So long as you don't take a shot at, somebody doesn't take a shot at my viewers, you can say anything you want. I don't care. Someone will say to me, "Can I say this particular word?" I'm like, "I don't give a shit. Go ahead." And everyone's like, "Oh, okay, we can say that."
Do you have like a name for your audience members, like the front porchers?
Fedora Nation.
Okay.
Fedora Nation.
I thought of an incredibly inappropriate name for your your audience. Let's just say
they might like it. Go ahead. I don't care.
Let's just say it starts with Porch. You can use your imagination to figure it out. But it's like, I'm just saying, there's a really hilarious and appropriate joke in there. Anyways, but no, I really have appreciated this opportunity to talk to your audience, and it's been wonderful. I wanna leave with one thing. Really,
go ahead.
Okay, this frustrates me to no end. So every time I meet an election official out here in Texas, every single time I will ask them the same thing. Or if someone trying to get my vote, like Julie Johnson, Texas representative out here, tried to come out here, knock on my door and get my vote. I ask all the election officials trying to get me to register to vote and them the same question. Do you know about ballot box 13? And not a single person has said yes yet. So I would like to educate people, including Julie Johnson, who represents my freaking district. Okay. Ballot box 13 was in 1948. Lyndon B. Johnson here in Texas. He lost his bid for Senate on election night, 1948. Then he got this election official in Jim Wells County. His name was Luis Salas, and he rigged the election for LBJ, and LBJ won his Senate election by 87 votes. Luis Salas accomplished this by simply writing names at the end of the list. They were not fake names. They were people who actually existed in Jim Wells County. Mm-hmm. They did not vote. And these people testified in court that they did not vote. But their testimony was superseded by Luis Salas, who at the time said they voted. Well, 29 years after that 1948 election, Luis Salas admitted that he rigged that Senate election for LBJ. Now, to be fair, LBJ was actually doing this in response to when he lost in 1941.
I got screwed. I'm going to screw somebody else.
That's how he learned the trick. Okay. Yep. And so in the end, a man who rose to presidency by not winning a single election without rigging or having someone's head conspicuously blown off. That guy rose to the presidency, never won an election.
Yep.
Welcome to America, folks. And that's the American history of voter fraud. And that ballot that Luis Salas rigged was ballot box 13. And they were stupid enough to take a picture with it. The stuffed ballot box. They took a picture with it. You could look it up online. People don't really realize what the context of that picture is. They are taking a picture next to the ballot box they had just stuffed days after the election so that LBJ can win.
And this, folks, is the Democrat Party that believes in democracy for everybody. There you go.
And in the first 15 minutes of the film, you can hear LBJ, the only tape of him saying the word. Hard on.
Yeah, I went, holy cow.
Every other thing is conjecture, hearsay. He may have said it. He said that. You can hear it. Okay.
And this, folks, is why you need to check out The History of American Voter Fraud by Eric and his lovely wife, Lila. My man, it has been I'm not going to let you go so you don't melt down there in Texas. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. And I'm serious when I say this. If you've got something to promote, a new documentary, a show, or whatever, message me and say, hey, man, can I get 5-10 minutes? Dude, you got the floor. You message me. You want to come back on here. And I'm serious about this. You want to come back on here anytime, you let me know. I'd love to have you back on here.
Yeah, I gotta come back and say hi to Fedora Nation. I will definitely.
Oh,
appreciate
dude.
you guys.
All right, now I'll let you do your commercial. Where can people find you on social media? How can they best support you? How can they best help Miss Lila? What can they do to help you guys out?
All right, for my wife, lilahart.com, LILAHART. My wife has the shortest name. I don't know how people get Layla. I mean everything but Lila. Every single time. You just watch it next time and you'll see this pattern. The shortest, simplest name, people screw it up. LILAHART, Lila Hart. Jeff Ross was the most infamous. It would always screw up her name, even though it's Lila. I would tell him that anyways. And then you can find all my stuff. Eric Abbenante. I'm the only one with that name. I do have imposters, people trying to pretend that they're me. They're LA open micers that are jealous of me. They stopped posting once I called them out on their Instagram. Anyways, so Eric Abbenante, immunetothesystem.com and lilahart.com. You can find all of our stuff there. We have 3 amazing 2-hour films for you to check out. American History of Voter Fraud, World Death Organization, the history of scientific eugenics, and the trial of Anthony Fauci. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you to Fedora Nation. And until next time, because I'll be back. I promise you guys. See ya.
Brother, we look forward to it. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Now go find some ice cubes and
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Have a good day. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Eric Abbenante, stand-up comedian, documentarian, and just hell of a nice guy. See, you come to the Electronic Front Porch and you get this kind of stuff. Why you are not subscribed to my channel, I have no idea. I was oy vey. To borrow a phrase that Eric undoubtedly has heard at one point or another in his life. Oy vey. Anyway, tell you what, folks, it's about 1:45 on a Saturday afternoon, and I got to find some food, and I got to do a few things. We're going to be back here at 3:30 this afternoon with my wonderful guest, Mr. Darius D. Simpson. We're going to be back for another session chatting on the porch here in about an hour and 45. So thank you so much for being here for Front Porch Brunch and our impromptu session of chatting on the porch with Eric. You guys are awesome. And keep cool for the next, the mythical 4th hour. But to go where no live streamer has gone before. Anyway, I love you guys. We'll be back here at 3:30 Eastern with Darius. Have fun in the meanwhile, and I will not give you my normal closing as we're still going to be working this afternoon. We'll see you guys at 3:30.